Okay, I will call the September 12th Lowell Light and Power Board regular meeting to order. Charlie, if you do roll call.
I will. Chairperson Beecham.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Fonder.
Here.
Board Member Cadwalder.
Here.
Board Member Strauben.
Here.
And Board Member Crawford.
Here.
Okay, 100%. Approval of the agenda. Any changes that anybody?
No, the only thing we will add, it's not really an agenda item, is after the approval of the agenda, or after the approval of minutes, where we'd like to introduce a new topic to the board doing the safety minute at the beginning.
Yep.
So don't think it needs to be reflected in the agenda, but whatever you would like it.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes of the August 15th, 2023 regular board meeting. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'd like to motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So do you want?
Yeah. So up on the screen, if you want to zoom out just a touch, one of the things that I've seen done elsewhere, I think it's a great idea, and then Perry and I saw it firsthand, and I think you had mentioned it at the board meeting last month, was to introduce just a brief safety discussion, or not even discussion, just a brief safety topic to be incorporated into all of our board meetings. So they're not necessarily light and power specific, they're just, it's more just a culture thing to try and incorporate safety into more aspects of what we do. So the first one I pulled I thought was interesting, just happened to do some Google searching, some interesting ideas. It was the concept of distracted walking.
So let me just go back. So what we're going to do is in a future, we've always had this agenda. We're going to move everything down and have like number 4 will be safety moment in the future.
I will make that adjustment on the actual agenda next time. So,
Yep.
But yeah, the first one I thought was interesting was just on distracted driving or distracted walking. And I inherently say distracted driving because that's the topic that everybody thinks about. Michigan's recently passed a new distracted driving law. But what I really thought was interesting is this secondary stat. For one, 78% of people see distracted walking as a serious issue, but 74% of Americans say other people are, but only 29% of people say they are. So as Meg and I were actually talking about this, it's pretty par for the course. Everybody else has a problem, but not me. But I really thought those were interesting. So, and I know that there's pick this one as well because recently, or maybe not recently, but it seems to be a reoccurring topic of Main Street here in Lowell and crossing. So it's just some good reminders to think about, while you're being distracted on your phone. People used to walk around and were focused on what they were doing. Now there's the Internet of Things is at your fingertips, and there's constantly something else competing with your attention. So a lot of people have either been in incidents or have seen incidents. And then if you scroll to the bottom, just some good tips. Focus on people and obstacles in front of you. Pay attention. It goes without saying, but it's a good reminder. The volume in your headphones, that's really important. Whether you're walking or riding a bike or anything, just being aware of what's coming up. Crossing the street at a traffic light or at a marked crosswalk reduces the likelihood that you will be focused on a distraction, not what's ahead of you, and then look up and stay alert. So I thought this was just a good kind of topic to touch on real quick. But yeah, we will introduce these safety moments at future board meetings. I will ask staff to kind of take the lead, and we'll rotate, and I think it'd be great if board members jumped in. They don't have to be anything, you don't have to have any special knowledge.
They're just
Really?
meant for, and that's what, a safety moment.
Okay, so it's something that's gonna kind of be not only a theme here at the meeting, but also for the company, for
We're going to introduce just safety in, intertwine safety into more things, even things that you don't necessarily think about as safety sensitive activities.
Like
It's not-
walking.
Like walking, yes. Or, and you don't think, the board, what safety topics do we need to talk about at the board? Well, to do the board, for the board to conduct the board's business, there's a lot of things. Driving safety, everybody has to get here, everybody has to go home, situational awareness. But even aside of that, if the thought is if people are safe 24/7, they can be available to carry out their commitments, things like that. So, and when we talk about safety at work, it's not just safety from 9 to 5 while you're doing business for like power. It's safety in your life and making sure. Ryan's a great example. He preaches it all the time about doing things right at home. We don't just tell you to do it right here because the law says you need to do it right here, or OSHA requires you to do it right. The intention is safety. The intention behind safety is not to save money, it's safety. That is its own purpose, so.
And what Charlie and I saw in Zealand, I think it was about sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And it was just, the statistics were astronomical. The sleep deprivation, what accidents and everything occurred because of that. So, good.
Well, there was a stat about it's the equivalent of
Yeah.
X number of drinks or something.
Public comment, any public? We really don't have any here. Action items.
Oh, that was quick.
We got no action items. Okay, smokes. We gotta drag this out, man.
Lots of healthy conversation.
Okay.
Now safety hour.
It's now the safety hour.
Informational items.
Oh, all right.
Lineshack update, and I believe Mayor is going to address that.
So, we ran into a little hiccup. Roughly two and a half years ago, FEMA regenerated the flood zone for the city. Very comprehensive report. We weren't allowed input. FEMA did it and told us this is what it is now. So, no changes wherever. We didn't get like a red line copy or anything. It was, here's your new floodplain, it goes in the FEMA folder. The Lineshack is in that new floodplain, which doesn't allow for residential. So, Jessica, our attorney, and Todd have been working with Congressman Molinar, who Jake Davenport works for. He gave us a line direct to his office. There's a way to contest the floodplain. Our contacts think there's value to it because none of the residential will be ground floor, right? You can flood a garage and nothing happens, right? And it's never gonna get second floor flood level. So we're currently in the process of doing that. We just cleared FEMA last week to access all the records related to the Lineshack, to this development agreement. Todd has sent over his plans. So now we're in a waiting game. They told us between 2 and 4 weeks, which in government time means
2 or 4 years.
December, January, February. But
Which
When
is-
you will get that FEMA,
when they will come out,
with that
we can either
report.
acknowledge our appeal or not.
Okay, when's the report gonna hit your desk? Did you already have the report?
The one, yes, we've had that now for a good year or two, but
Oh, I didn't know
it's
that.
never come up because we've never redeveloped anything that was existing.
Which, again, it's just, it's, if it was on the other side of the river, we've seen floods. The flat is never really flooded, it's because of the grand that it's
Yeah.
flooded and come up. And yeah, we've had over on the east side of the river, water up to flood stage. But again, where the Lineshack is, if you measure that, I mean, 3/4 of the east side of the river is, east side of the flat river is gonna be gone if the water ever gets up as high as the Lineshack. I mean,
And it won't, because the elevation going north wouldn't allow it. The water would never back up that far. I mean, it'd have to be NOAA, right, to get that high leveled off. The other thing is Todd's plans include replacement and reinforcing of that retaining wall, which will help with the FEMA stuff. The residences not being ground floor will definitely help, so. We're working together really well. We've got a congressman involved now, so hopefully he'll help us expedite it a little bit. And then we've been put in touch, Jake put us in touch with his office representative here as well. His name is Joel. So Jessica's handling it because she can answer the questions a lot better than we can, and she's accessible during the hours that Joel's going to be accessible. So not a hang up, just a delay. But we're working on it pretty hard, pretty diligently, and I'd be happy to forward to anybody who wants it, the informational release and any.
The FEMA report?
No, I mean, you can get the FEMA report at City Hall, but
Okay.
the steps we're taking to get to appeal, I'd be happy to share with any board member or Charlie.
So the appeal thing is like a for sure deal, or the appeal is like something they'll decide on and it could possibly fail?
Well, there's a fee for it, so they're likely gonna at least allow us to appeal so they can take Todd's money.
So in the 2 to 4 week, they're going to acknowledge the appeal. They won't make a determination.
No.
They will just make, the only determination they'll make is whether or not they will
Yes.
make a determination.
Yep.
They're going to determine if they're going to make a future
And
determination.
that's why we didn't want to go in it ourselves, because I don't feel like getting a call from me or Mike Burns or Charlie or whoever carries a lot of weight with FEMA, so we tried to go
So,
as far up the ladder as we could to get some.
so Todd is responsible for that fee, or is the city, or are you sharing it, or?
We would likely split it, yeah, because I feel like we bear some responsibility, because there was a appeal process when the new report came out, that we didn't appeal during that process, right or wrong. We didn't have any reason to at the time, but
So
we do bear some responsibility. In my opinion.
And
is
you know
we
what
bear
that number is?
some. $5,000.
Half was what we had, the trails had to pay for just for the railroad.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We had to write them a check for 10,000 for them to a day later say, nope.
Well, any indication of how long if they do accept the case for the appeal, how long it'll be before they make a determination on the actual floodplain?
They won't make a commitment to us.
That's what I figured. I didn't know if there were statutory
No.
requirements.
They're-
Some of those appeal processes have statutory requirements.
The congressman's office involved, the wheels could be a little.
We're hoping that keeps the wheels spinning at a more accelerated pace than if it was just me calling there every day and they can just block my number.
And Congressman Molinar is experienced,
Yes.
which is huge, knowing how to navigate, just having the know-how of how to navigate Washington.
And he has some pretty solid FEMA contacts too. So Todd's committed to the process, to seeing it through. We're committed to the process and seeing it through. It's not a make or break deal, obviously, right now, but everybody's on board and we're moving forward as fast as the federal government will allow us to. My contention would be that we would just kick the money to Light and Power and let you guys be done with it, but that apparently is not something we can do.
Yeah, Jessica has detailed the challenges with that piece. I guess we can cross the bridge when the time comes, but if ultimately FEMA rejects the appeal, is there any indication that Todd has an alternative plan, or does that scrap everything and, or best
No,
to wait till there's a determination?
Yeah, best to wait for a determination because the cost to engineer and draft a backup plan just to have a backup plan would be
I don't know if
more exponential than the 2,500 or whatever the pay FEMA. We're incredibly optimistic. We just I can't give you a
Yep.
dead set calendar date.
Okay. Move on, MPPA, customer-driven utility benchmarking.
All right, this is the, this has got Steve's fingerprint all over it. The business model risk assessment has been rebranded the CDUB. The customer used to be the, what do they call it? The, oh heck, the business model risk assessment. That's what it was. Business model risk assessment. Now they changed it to customer-driven utility benchmarking, and this is a really good program that MPPA does for all 22 members. They do it on an annual basis. This is the third year that they've done it, and each year they've improved the process and kind of fine-tuned it. This year there's a really big influence on, or a big focus on trying to align this assessment with S&P standards or credit rating standards. So that, members are using this information similar to how a credit rating agency would view from a risk perspective. From a rate standpoint, we'll start there. We're highly competitive, obviously. That's to be expected. The numbers did slip a little bit compared to last year. But there's a lot of timing factors in this, but we're still seeing we're running about 5 cents under at the residential level. So also that 221 rate is our residential. The 222 is small commercial. Nope.
121 is residential.
Oh, I'm sorry, 121. I was looking at the 21. Sorry. Yeah, 121. Yes, first one residential, 121 small commercial. Larger commercial, demand commercial, and then I forget which order those two go in. They're both primary. Go ahead.
24 is transformer ownership.
Transformer ownership. So the 223 and 224 are both our industrial classes where they're metered at the primary voltage. But the 223, we own the transformers. 224, they own the transformers. Customers like King Milling sit in 224.
And you can tell me if this is a bad idea or a good idea. Can we move the 121, that number's over, and actually physically write in that residential, light commercial, and everything, and then disseminate that to our ratepayers, or put it on our website, or whatever? Because again, we know what one, or I didn't, I was gonna ask that question, but I assume, 121 was residential, but I didn't know what are all the other ones, and good idea, bad idea,
It's one of the recommendations that MPPA has. I'd like to hold off for right now because we're also working with UFS to do a valuation study of what the value light and power represents to the community on an annual basis. And one of the major components is rate savings and converting these savings to dollars. So to give an idea of what the impact is on this, this represents, where's my number? Over $1.5 million in savings on an annual basis. So this is
Across all the rates?
What's that?
Across all the
Yes,
rates?
yeah, cumulatively, and I have a per class breakdown.
so I guess what I would like us, once you get that information from UFS, is to put that all together in a story
Yes.
that we can then put in our, advertise it, website, for those that still get bills, such as myself, put it in a letter, and disseminate that information out to the public.
So one of the things, so the valuation study will look at all the various streams, and it pulls together a really nice story because it'll look at rate savings, it'll look at pilot, it'll look at in-kind contributions that we make, community events that we support, benevolence activities. They'll also quantify the value of reliability. And that's an interesting concept that's was really easy to see after the storm a few weeks ago when you drove through town on Friday morning, and actually met with somebody earlier this week that made the comment, I couldn't even get my coffee that Friday morning because the line from McDonald's was backed all the way out into the road. So the economic impact of us having lights in Lowell when the surrounding areas are without lights is, I don't know how to quantify it myself, but I would love to know what the economic impact was Friday and Saturday after the storm.
So I'll just locally, again, Trudy Cahoon, Kaiser's Kitchen is a close friend. She would like to know if we could somehow rig it so the surrounding areas goes without power and she has power. That Friday was the largest day that Kaiser's has ever had in sales.
That is fantastic. That's more information. Anecdotally, you drive through town and you see consumers' trucks sitting at, you see consumers' trucks sitting at Big Boiler, and the McDonald's line is out into the street, and I'm assuming that Main Street Inn was booked up, and I had to get gas whenever I could get gas. I was on E that Friday coming into the office and Saturday. I said, I better get gas. There's an empty gas pump right now.
Can I ask two questions?
Absolutely.
Question number one, are you obligated to set the rate at a current level or at a certain level? Or is this just what you need to pay your employees and pay your pilot and pay all that stuff? Like,
We're
you're obligated to
nonprofit.
save, right, but are you obligated to save people a certain amount? Or do we do that by choice? Because that has value, in my opinion. We choose to keep it this low. We're allowed to raise it.
So right here is the rate-making process. The 5 board members here have full rate-making authority. I don't know exactly what the charter says. Most of the time, city charters include some language that you'll set the rates to meet these things. So, could be, but whatever says in the charter is what it says in the charter. Philosophically, we're public power. As you said, we're not-for-profit. So we don't look to our competitors to decide what we need.
Right, but you're not obligated to
Yes.
save people 27.
No, it's a product of public power and the fact that we don't have investors that we answer to. And it's a product of intentionally controlling costs. Because there is capacity, because the other thing that's important to note here, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, MPPA gives them recommendations. Develop a 5-year rate strategy. We have that. And we actually just recently updated it. But the second one I think is interesting, and gets a little bit to your point. You want to ask, why are your rates low? Because low rates are not necessarily the end-all be-all. Because if your rates are low because you failed to maintain your system, you will see it in reliability. If your rates are low because you don't pay your employees, and you don't have competitive wages, you don't have competitive benefit package, you don't keep a strong team. So you don't understand why your rates are low. When I look, and this second one is kind of getting at it. If you're not making investments in IT, if you're not investing in your distribution system, your staff, your facilities, those things, then you should consider what does it take to holistically be competitive.
And that's what we did though. We
Yeah.
raised rates by, what was it, 6%? 6.5. Okay, yeah.
Right, but usually a lower price means lower quality,
Yes.
generally.
So if you look at their recommendation, invest in the distribution system. I actually just added up what we're finishing up RP3 stuff. We've made over $2.5 million in capital investments in the last 3 years. We have another $1 million lined up this year. General rule of thumb is if your capital investments exceed your depreciation, your system is theoretically getting newer. You're investing more than you're depreciating. So our depreciation tends to be about $750,000 a year, and we're investing about $1 million a year. So, from an investment standpoint, we're there. From a benefits package, I'll stack our benefits package up against anybody's. From competitive salaries, we're extremely competitive from a salary standpoint. Other investments that some utilities push off, things like AMI, large investments that are big chunky investments. There's a lot of encouragement if you have rate capacity, get AMI. Don't fall behind the trends, but we're not. I said benefits, system, IT, facilities. We've spent over $1 million on this facility, addressing major issues. It's room.
As a MPPA member, we're one of the few that are ahead of the curve on AMI and.
Yeah, we're positioned really well. So, I guess all the way back to the original question, no. We just do it because it's what, quote,
It meets our vision, and our vision statement is that we want to be a premier utility, and that's what we are.
But we do have rate capacity. That's something that like, we did an S&P surveillance review a year ago, and they look at, from a risk standpoint, what capacity do you have to raise rates? Because we can't project what's going to happen tomorrow. We had a much larger than normal rate increase this year, and it was because our cash position needed to improve, volatility in the market. So because we had that capacity, it frees up the decision-making process quite a bit. So it really is very nice.
And I'm going to say, from my son's in-laws, they got hit. They live over between Lowell and Center Neck, and they got hit really hard. They were without power Thursday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, about midnight, I think, is when they were working on the lines at midnight still at their house. Those first 3 days, the first 3 days, they had already gone through $150 worth of fuel. That, again, when you're talking about going to the gas station, people are lined up at the gas stations with their 5-gallon cans to get fuel too. And so they went clearly between $300 and $400 in gasoline to fuel their, to have a portable generator.
It's generally just enough to survive too, right? Not to
Yeah.
power an entire house.
Unless you have a Generac that's
Yeah.
hooked up, and if you don't have natural gas at your house, you're typically not gonna do that. A lot of people that have natural gas, they can use a Generac or like
A whole
another
home.
company, a whole home thing that, automatically, as soon as the power blinks or goes out, it automatically kicks on, and you're not having to go down to the gas station and get fuel. You're just paying more for your, an additional cost for your natural gas. So,
Question 2.
Question 2, when you're saying that you put an inherent value on reliability, you put a value on being able to send people out to help other communities too. You know what I'm saying? Because without your reliability, your people would have to be here working. But because they don't, because the system is so well maintained, they're able to go help other places. Doesn't that also have inherent value?
Absolutely, because what we found is we send our crews, I've never once not heard that our crews were the shining star. So when we're in need,
They get to park in the garage.
yeah, they get to park in the garage down at Hillsdale. They do, our crews tend to stand out as top-notch crews, and it creates a desire to want to help us, which we're very fortunate as well. There's 40 municipal utilities in Michigan. I believe all 40 participate in the statewide mutual aid program ran through our state association. but it's nice because, maybe not all of them, because some of, EUP, they're really small, but, everybody participates, everybody's happy, everybody's very quick to support others. I actually I did to leave town for a funeral that Wednesday night after, a week later, and as I was driving towards Lansing, Lansing got hit hard, they must have released crews, because going the other way, I saw Zeeland, Grand Haven, Zeeland, Holland, they were all headed back, but the mutual aid network is a tremendous value for our community and the 39 other public power communities, because of the 40 utilities, this storm significantly impacted 2 of us. It was us and Lansing. Lansing got hit much harder than us. But that means there's 38 other utilities that were not as impacted. So we benefit from geographic diversity. So there's tremendous value. I guess when I say we're going to quantify the value of the liabilities, we're going to truly put a dollar. Like this is objectively for the power being on this much of the time translates to this much economic impact to the local community. And some of that will obviously be based on assumptions, but I would love to quantify the value of the mutual aid network, because it's huge.
And we have mutual aid here, in Michigan, but we also, our guys, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but they look forward to helping other communities. We've gone to Florida, and we come back and heard the stories about the grounds guys watching for alligators and snakes. Literally, because in that storms, we've sent the Sandy, the Hurricane Sandy, we sent people to, cruise to New York. And again, like this storm that we had a small crew from Holland come with some specialized equipment to get into some backyards, to put in some new poles and stuff. So, and I think line workers are different, a different set of guys. When I've traveled with them for line workers rodeo and everything, it's a group that you like going with because nobody's going to bother you. Nobody's going to pick on you. They are a tough, minded, hard-working group, and our guys are right in there with the best of them.
I would agree. I sat down here Friday and ate lunch with them with the storm. Or no, it must have been after that. I don't know. Friday. I made a comment, but I don't remember how it was, but one of them said, man, we were having a lot of fun. They're out till 3 o'clock in the morning the night before, and they're talking about how much fun they're having. They enjoy what they do, and it shows because they do a dang good job. They were, I think you had sent me an email saying, guys, are already talking about wanting to go to Florida, because I think at that point there was a hurricane that ultimately the National Mutual Aid Network never called on assistance from the state of Michigan, but I know Steve from out in Holland who's our mutual aid coordinator. He was already working on it, and our guys were already talking about, can we go? They're ready to help, and it's not easy work either. They might enjoy it, but that means they're enjoying 16+ hour days of physical hard labor, no sleep, generally less than stellar meals. We do a pretty good job feeding our guys here, but it's hard to feed a bunch of crews when their primary focus is being out in the field working.
And you have no amenities to provide for them.
Yeah. So.
Just probably, I'm going to underscore that when we go out and do this, we're doing it for other public power utilities and not investor-owned.
We have,
It depends.
as far as I'm aware, we have not typically, maybe in some of the national efforts they've coordinated, I'm not sure, but yes, we tend to,
the IOUs tend to look to contractors for storm work, and they don't tend to look, and a lot of that's how many can you get with one phone call. But we do have an agreement in the state of Michigan with consumers and DT. That was a product of COVID. Pre-COVID, we did not have agreements. We actually have reciprocal mutual aid agreements with consumers, DT, and I believe the co-op association. So in a time of a storm, it's really about the end customer and helping the people. But we tend to prioritize other, and everybody tends to look to their standard routes, which is for us, municipal mutual aid. All right, we'll move on a little bit on the.
I think another question. So back over the previous table,
Yes.
was there any information as to why there's a bigger difference for certain rates and smaller differences for others?
The rate structure. We would have to get really granular, but it's just the structure and the different billing components. And then also, these are average bills, class averages, so things like your customer charge.
That's what I was kind of wondering, is it like the demand charge or the?
Demand, we have templates for each individual rate, and we can really dig in, and we can do comparisons on an individual basis and really understand how the different components impact. But a good example is residential. Our customer charge is significantly higher than consumer's customer charge. Ours is $26-ish, consumers I believe is 10. It's a difference between, and is that what it is?
I don't know, I'm just, if that's the.
Oh, I think
I'm surprised they're.
I want to say maybe like 8.
It might be even 8, but it's a philosophical difference in
Right.
cost-based rates versus investor owned. So we have aligned our fixed costs with our fixed revenues. So your low users, one of our employees actually used to be one of our customers and is one of the most energy conscientious people I've ever met in my life. Her consumer's bill after she moved this past month is less than our fixed costs. So but that's the anomaly. If you
Yeah.
really look across class average. So as your residential usage goes up, that differential grows.
Yeah.
So I guess it highlights that there are individual billing components that we're taking multiple components and boiling it down to a net difference at the end bill, where really there are a lot of levers being moved behind the scenes, whether it's demand charges, whether there are fixed costs or volumetric costs in the various charges, and that really can skew things one way or another. If you have a whole bunch of fixed costs, that's going to, for low users, that's going to drive up their bill. If you have a more variable cost for low users, that drives it down. So I haven't looked into individual rates and individual billing components to know and be educated on a granular level where we're seeing it. But if I had to guess, it really is a matter of what's fixed, what's variable, and then really like a demand component, again, is what's the average
Right.
demand, what's the average kilowatt hour consumption. But there's that delta between those numbers that obviously grows with numbers, or grows with the higher volume of the transaction.
Okay. Next, I was kind of expecting that the 224 would have been the biggest difference, given that we have like just a handful of customers. And so our sample size being so low, I would have thought it would have been the most different from them, which they probably got thousands of similarly sized large customers. And we've got, 2,000 residential, which should be kind of similar, but it's actually the other way around, which I thought was just interesting.
And I think I can't speak to consumers, but I think a lot of it's philosophical
Yeah.
from what I have seen elsewhere in the country and anecdotally looking at. It's about there's more of a focus on economic development. And at the bigger utility, there is an opportunity to, you've got a large enough size that you're able to allocate and carve out a portion of your customers and treat them differently. But it's really based on
load factor, and what are you trying to accomplish, economic development. So the other thing is it's a smaller percentage, but it's a lot of dollars.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking, it's probably,
So, and just to give you an idea, here we go. So that breakdown is about 800, for us, it's about an $800,000 savings on the residential level, about $500,000 here in the commercial, and about a $200,000. But, you know, that $800,000 at the residential is spread across 2,000 plus customers. That $200,000 savings is spread across 24, 5, 4,
6.
6.
yep.
So, but granted, the bills are also significantly higher,
Yeah.
so it's still a percentage, it's a percentage game.
Yeah. The other thought I had was, the Perry was mentioning about, can we put this out, you know, get this out there? Do we have any similar data for reliability, like the AC type stuff?
Absolutely.
Because I think it'd be cool to put that out in the same, if we're gonna start kind of doing outreach with this thing, I'd like to put the reliability out there as well. Just say,
Right.
hey, you're paying, your average bill was X compared to consumers, your average outage time was Y compared to consumers.
And that's why I want to wait till UFS does really a holistic look at things. But I actually just compared and shared with the leadership team on Monday where we stack up from a reliability standpoint, and I'll save that for another day.
Okay. Just when we do, just make sure we use numbers that folks are gonna relate to.
Yeah, and that's
Average bill, average minutes out, or a number of outages, or something
and that's what
that's personal to them, but.
And that's why I try to, some of those outage metrics are, the one I like to use, you know, that I think is interesting is the average number of outage, customers, the average number of outages each customer experiences in a year
Yes.
is 0.2 roughly.
Yeah.
Which really means that
Once
about
every 5 years.
every 5 years, our customers expect to experience one outage on average. That number is pretty impactful when consumers' number is north of 1.
Yeah,
So
so I think
every-
that's saying, once every 5 years, you would expect to have an outage lasting about half an hour, or whatever that number is.
100 minutes.
Okay, that's 100 minutes. And compared to consumers, you get one every year, average
And it's
lasting,
400
For 4
minutes.
days.
there you go, yep.
Actually,
So I think that tells the story, I think, pretty well, right? People can then kind of figure out whatever else they want from that, but that's,
And I think you're absolutely right. My belief, and maybe when we get to the survey, we'll find out some more information, but I believe reliability is more important than the cost savings. I think,
oh, yeah.
I think
Well,
people, I mean, if you would go and ask, especially, in the last month, they appreciate having lower cost than their neighbors. But at the same time, I think if you gave them, if you had the same cost as your neighbors, but your reliability was this, which would you take? And
well, we have double the outages.
Facebook is a crap place for a lot of information, but if you go by the consensus of the people that are there about Lowell Light and Power, they'd be more than happy
That's
to.
enough to get somebody to change their political leanings completely. Allegedly.
Right, so CETA. No, but they're very competitive, and I look back at all 3 years, because I want to start trending this number, but this is the.
Another graph?
Does he always yell at you like that?
Don't you know him?
Yeah, he yells at me like that. So I can't do anything.
You get it twice a month, I only get it once a month.
I haven't been to a no public comment meeting in a long time, I'll tell you that.
But with MPPA modernizing how they calculate these, I think they will land and keep to this methodology moving forward. So I'd like to start trending this. 1 or 2 data points doesn't make a trend, but here in 4 or 5 years, we'll be able to start really understanding the ebbs and flows. Because I think a lot of this is somewhat timing based. Our rate cases, or our rate changes go in effect January 1. Consumers, they have this whole rate case process with the MPSC, and they're going through one right now. If you're not aware, Dana Nessel has gotten involved and is trying to significantly reduce what consumers, customers will new costs they'll incur based on the rate case. I'll let them manage their business. Other thing that MPPA looks at is customer concentration. Again, this is looking at it kind of geared towards the rating agency viewpoint. Residential class, the rating agencies like to see high percentage of sales go to residential classes because it's the likelihood of a significant loss of load. It just has a natural diversification. You might lose 1 or 2, 10 houses, but odds are you're not going to lose half of your residential load. So the loss of load, the likelihood of loss of load is just not there. Obviously, top 10 customers being over 50% of our load, or really it's, we don't know, this one is based on megawatt hours, not revenues, but that shows, to rating agency, that shows risk, and that any one of those customers represents a higher likelihood of a significant loss of load.
If they looked at the stability of those large users, and I don't know, we probably can't mention any names here, but the stability and the growth of our largest customer.
So you look at the top customers, 20%, and I'll touch on that one. I don't think that's any secret to who that is, but I've dealt with other largest customers before, and I think we might have been talking about it recently. We are very fortunate that our largest customer, to your point, from a risk standpoint, is a local, a long time rooted business. Family owned, and specific to Lowell. It's not like they have facilities scattered all over the state, and at any given point they could say, these two are merging, and one has a huge windfall and the other has a significant loss of load. We have really a single shop operation that is very stable.
They're 20.8% of the entire load or of the top 10?
Of the entire load. They're 1/5 of our business. From a revenue standpoint, they might be, some are revenues either slightly higher or slightly lower, but it changes a little bit. And this is pre-new load. And that number could be, this number will move next year, we'll just say that. Depending, actually it might not, they go by a calendar year, don't they?
The following year.
The following year, yeah. But, MPPA talks to some recommendations. Recommendations on its rate strategies to ensure fixed and variable costs are aligned with revenues. The bank board is very aware of the efforts we've done to move toward cost-based rates, and then key accounts and knowing our customers, and having a relationship with our customers, knowing when expansions are happening or contractions, layoffs, exploring alternative locations, anything like that. Just having our finger on the pulse of our customers is important. We do rate a little bit higher here, but we are taking this one is something that is more it's really hard to control. It's hard to influence your customer makeup. We're not out there, we're doing what we can by seeking out residential developments as developments come available, but if a development is 2 miles away, it's almost impossible to justify from a risk perspective and improving. It's hard to build a 2-mile line and improve your risk profile. You end up just taking on additional risks and exposure. So it's tough to change, and we also appreciate our 10 largest customers, and I'd hate for them to be smaller, because that means they're impacted. So this one's a tough number to move, but you can strategically address the outcome of this and how the rating agencies are going to view you. The other thing that I think is neat is we have a very
This came out in the last S&P surveillance review. We are heavily reliant on the food industry, which is a good industry. Some of our biggest customers are Meyer, White House, and Miller. So food tends to also be a more stable industry.
Yeah.
We have auto manufacturers. Those industries tend to be more volatile as the kind of blows with the economy a little bit. If people aren't buying cars, then there's not as much business. But if the economy takes a downturn, people still need to eat. That's all I had on this one. Happy to answer any questions or any other discussion. Again, I can't highlight the value that MPPA brings to this. They have the expertise and the skill sets to really be able to dive into the rate tariffs through MPPA or through the MPSC and really develop. We wouldn't have the opportunity. It'd be hard to justify somebody spending time diving into rate tariffs to understand consumers' rates for just us. But MPPA has the skill set to create the benefit and spread the cost, I guess, across all the members.
So, and we'll talk about it later when we get into board comments on it. But I'm glad our mayor is sitting in for Jim. Jim does a great getting information back to the council. But I'm curious to hear, do you have similar things? We're talking about power here, but do you have similar things for the water department? I mean, do you have, and I say this just because when we went to Zealand, their board is electric and water. And they have one customer that uses 62% of all their water.
2.5 million gallons a day, more than our entire
So,
plant.
so it's like, it's like we've talked about, so all of a sudden if that customer goes away, what are we gonna do? Well, the same thing was, do you have the same kind of statistics? Do you get the same kind of statistics in the water department?
I'm sure that they exist, but they are not communicated to us, no.
Okay.
But it would be interesting to know.
And I'm just, because again, I think we're gonna talk a little bit about a workshop between us and the city council when we get down to board comments. And again, I look at this, and again, it's not that it's just what we saw at Zealand, and you're, eye-opening, and you're going, holy smokes. I mean, that was, to think one customer uses that much.
I think I had another customer that was about 1.5 million gallons.
Right.
Our whole plant's what, about
one was
1.9?
1.8, yeah.
one. I mean, it was like with the two of them combined, it was almost like 90% of their water is the consumption is between these two. One was consumers, and the other one was a baby formula company.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. Cool. All right. You ready to roll on into the next? So we'll go just a real brief. This is not the full review. These are very preliminary information, but thought we'd share some preliminary data on the customer survey that just closed at the end of beginning of September. One of the things I want to highlight is one of the reasons we went this route for our first customer survey ever, or at least in a long time, is the idea of benchmarking against our peers and understanding, how do we stack up against other public power utilities. This survey is the same survey. It's done in partnership with APPA and Great Blue Research, and it's the survey that anybody that participates, but it's the APPA sponsored survey. So there are public power utilities
throughout the country using this same survey. They actually, as part of this, they'll do separate quarterly surveys, and we have access to some of that, we have access to all that information, but really just for this is the same customer satisfaction survey that goes out to any participating member. I don't have total numbers of participants this year, but they revamped it, cut the cost in about half, and really remarketed it and pushed it out, trying to get more support and more utilization of this service. Scores ranked 1 through 4 are considered positive scores, which we don't need to touch on how backwards that is, but we all agree. But we'll receive, utilities will receive a gold award with criteria at 95% positive, silver from 90 to 94, and bronze from 80 to 89. Obviously, our goal is gold. That's the standard that we like to hold ourselves to. So if you want to go ahead and scroll down here, here's a piece of the survey. This was just the questions where you rated. I will say
We didn't get that in our packet, correct?
no.
Yeah.
It's not final data,
Right.
so I'm not
Yeah.
gonna hand too much.
Consumption or, yeah.
I will give some highlights. So I've taken the time, added up. So 95, that first one, 1 through 4 is 95%. The second one, good service and value for the cost, 95.4%. Restoring power after an outage in a reasonable amount of time, it was 94.9%. Consistent reliability was our number one, so far, preliminarily, number one ranked, it was 98% positive. Innovative programs and services. This is one that we're always going to, based on our size, it's tough to offer some meaningful programs and it not be extremely costly because we just are limited ability to share costs. Not an excuse by any means, but definitely the most I don't knows. The one, that 28 was don't know or not applicable. So that tells us that first we need to continue to focus on marketing and before we worry about any new programs. But Emily and Lisa do a really good job marketing, and I bet this number has increased in the last 2 years, but we don't really have
A benchmark.
a baseline. So this will serve as our baseline.
I was going to say, just seeing what has gone on in the past and seeing what current programming is, I would say there's probably more activity in that area.
And the other thing, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm jumping ahead. Go ahead.
All right, and then overall satisfaction.
I was gonna say about the innovative programs, I mean, I wouldn't, like, you're saying it's kind of hard to offer that, I kind of feel like perhaps as a small utility might be more capable of offering innovative things, but those offerings would be to a smaller subset of customers potentially.
So I'll use it in
And
this.
so that's where I wonder if like we can do a lot of, we can be flexible and do a lot of try different things more easily, but the impact is not gonna be across the entire customer base that often.
And there's other things like, the example I use is something I'd love to do, is have consumers, and I hate to talk highly about them now, there's things that they do well. One of their things that I think is an interesting program that they offer, but they only have 2 of these people for 2 million customers, is an EV liaison. It's not just a, hey, here's some information about electric vehicles. It's let me sit down with you, understand your life, your lifestyle, and truly I will be the non-biased electric vehicle expert that acts on your behalf. I'm your personal helper to guide you through this significant process.
They can have a time of use liaison.
Yeah, but they have 2 of those for 2 million
Right.
customers. So there's just certain costs that if you per capita, you look at what that equates to us. I can give one person 15 minutes a year. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's just going to be limitations because you need a higher customer base for some of these programs to get practice.
You know, if we had an EV liaison, it's an uphill battle, because you're not getting those calls every day, you're not getting them every month, it's a fresh start, so that's when I think of, but I think we do have, from our EWR perspective, we saw it this year as we, moved away from the state requirements, and we moved to our own program in-house. We have a ton more flexibility, we're throwing in, the shade tree program this year. Right? So I would agree in certain cases, yes, there's opportunities to leverage our small size to do things a bigger utility can't. There will also be roadblocks to doing some things, but the key is how do you identify where we can take advantage of being a small utility, promote that, and do better.
That's the part I think is key, is making sure we identify and communicate that. I mean, things like hanging banners. That, to be honest, I don't even consider that a program or service, but it's something that we provide that's unique.
And I wasn't thinking about that. I'm
But
thinking
that's
about
what
like
I'm saying, is we
EWR.
need to make sure you
Things
consider
direct-
what are we defining as
Directly
innovative.
impact our
Yeah, but
customers.
Brian and I talk about it regularly. We all talk about it. You know, how do we leverage our small size? One of the things, it's not program based, but one of the things, the East Side project with the contractors. A big utility might send a letter if you're lucky. Ryan and an office staff member, and again, they went and knocked on doors. And, you know, when our customers have access to the man who makes the decisions and gets the job done, instead of going through 7 different people. I mean, Consumers has a new service journey map. It's a full page on the 12 steps it takes to get your electric service hooked up. Our process, call Ryan. It's great, it's more complicated than that, but I think that's a great that highlights
That's a good
how we can,
marketing.
and we talk about that regularly, is how do we we're not gonna be able to compete in certain arenas, but there are other arenas that we can absolutely out-compete and we can shine, so how do we identify those? And are we aware of them, and do we take advantage of them when we do have the opportunity?
The struggle is with a staff your size, you can only dedicate so many people and hours to that before the rest of the categories start to suffer too.
And that would be the other thing is, so the other, and we had a conversation about this, as we were seeing these numbers come in, I want to hesitate from saying, oh, the survey says we don't do as well here, we need new programs. And we don't add programs to score better on the survey, we add programs to serve a need that the customers have. So we still need to make sure that whatever we're doing is intentional, not towards a survey, but intentional towards serving our customers. And there are opportunities, there are absolutely opportunities to expand our program offerings. I'd like to look at, EV charger rebates, but I don't want to rebate, I want to aid the construction, I want to be able to quantify the value to all customers.
It's not like we're gonna raise rates to have more fun with our programming. I mean, it's,
But if there is a need, we have rate capacity if we have to. So it's keeping your options open and being intentional in the actions that you take, instead of just reactionary and saying, oh yeah, we this or we that. That's why I say the first thing is let's market. Let's focus on making sure that we're maximizing the value of existing programs before we just throw out new programs. But if a new program fits a need that our customers are asking for, let's do that.
That's the other thing too, when you're so proactive and so far ahead of the curve on most things, they don't come across to people as innovative. They become, at some point, an expectation.
Yeah, they're kind of used to us going door to door.
Maybe try to do worse for a little while.
Yeah.
And then lie and say
This
it's
is
a new program.
We're going to strategically be bad.
I mean,
Start a couple fires, put them out, and then you boost your numbers.
But see, I think my original point was just you made the comment about it's hard for us to offer this, and I wanted to kind of challenge that a bit and say, well, it's easy for us to offer stuff. The question is, do people realize what we offer?
Yes.
And then how do we define a service and program? Like the hanging banners thing, do we really commit it as a service, I guess? But I think that's something, things like that, we should maybe consider, hey, maybe that is a service. Or just like you mentioned, the fact that we go door to door for a project versus a letter. That's an additional service that most utilities don't provide.
Or they call a phone number and talk to a human right away.
Yeah, well, I was actually gonna say that
Takes
one of my
20
coworkers, back when I was on city council, one of my coworkers was moved at Lowell, and he had a question, I just said, call City Hall, they'll help you out. He got the general manager. you know, and he couldn't believe it. He came back and he's like, oh my God, I was talking to the general manager for 20 minutes. And he helped me and pointed me all these right directions. And he's like, I can't go to any other city and get on the phone and talk to somebody who will,
Accessibility will always be something that is.
there's only so much you can do, right?
Yep.
But he was happy that it was actually possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it happened to be that I think the person who he would have talked to was on lunch or something, so he got the general manager. But he thought it was cool that it was a small enough office that
I've
it
had,
was easy to talk to somebody and get help.
it's funny, because I've had customers come in and say, I can't believe you're gonna give me this much time. My job.
Yeah.
I don't look at it as a special, again, I don't look at it as a special service or a special offering, it's just.
So-
Tony, and it's what we do.
Yep, well, it's part of having fun, right, like the guys were doing, you know, they have fun putting power back on, or you have fun helping people that want help.
Yeah.
So my question, and full disclosure, I did not take the survey because
I didn't either.
well, I didn't want to skew it. I wanted,
I
you know,
felt,
I am a customer, but I know that I would have rated everything, you know, all ones, you know, and then you're not getting a true.
Well, I did the
But-
survey, because I'm loyal.
But my question is, are these the exact questions that were, so did they give examples of programs or everything? Because again, I'm trying to, as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think of programs or services, and I'm thinking, okay, you know, we've kind of decided we're not doing the internet, we're not doing fiber optics, and we're not doing, what we're doing, I think as a board, we've kind of said, we're gonna do the best, we're gonna be the premier of supplying electricity. So so again, Mike, you know, when you're looking at that, you know, is somebody going, oh, I wish they'd, you know, they used to have cable TV. I wish they still had cable TV and mark you low because you don't have cable TV anymore, or we don't have the internet, and,
That's what I was-
you know, and so.
But I think that 28%, or the 28 answers on the right, is I don't know, or some of the other ones where they had cable, they had this.
So what I'm saying to you, as a board, what I would really like to see is from this, not necessarily from this, but I'd like to see a list of potential programs and everything. Not that we're gonna do that, because, you know, I'm going, well, what, in my mind, I'm going, well, what other programs can we do besides
Actually,
getting electricity out there? So, but you mentioned
So
like
what
the
I was gonna-
EV and stuff.
Yeah, what I was
Water
gonna
and
suggest-
sewer.
Yeah, so what I was gonna
Please.
suggest though, is that in the next survey, you
Tomorrow.
can put in there, you know, offering,
I'll give you this.
whatever that question.
So this,
Can you say, give us some examples of what we offer that you like, and what are some examples we could offer?
So
Just
the
as a way to
problem
give them
is-
a chance to give some input.
We did appliance rebates first, and we did light bulbs first, and we did these, you know, home kits
Right.
first. Now they're not innovative anymore, it's just something people
Well,
have come to expect from your
Well, that's what I wanna know, is
supplier.
what do people think is an innovative
Yeah.
program? All the people that answered in the positive, what were they thinking?
and we can't really, it's one of the downsides of participating in, or it's one of the limitations, not downsides. It's a limitation of participating in the national survey, it is branded for us, but it's branded at the top, they slap our logo on it, it's our website, the questions are the same. Now, next year, an enhancement that we want to look at is we can pay additional money to add questions.
They comment, oh,
Yeah, not
Like our own-
comments,
our own questions?
this one I don't think we're ever gonna have the ability to change, but what I wanna use is, on an annual basis, target certain things. And add us maybe 5 to 10 questions to get at more behavioral things, like if this wanted to be a strategic focus, you know, let's take the extra questions and focus on word the questions so that we can educate our customers on existing programs. Were they aware of them? We can really dive in, and if this is going to be a focus, we can focus the additional questions on getting at what, how familiar are they? What do they see as our programs? What potential programs do they want to see? Where are the gaps in their, I don't know, what's the likelihood that they use another program? However we want to word it, but,
But to Perry's point, sorry to interrupt, to Perry's point, it's almost better to see 28 people that didn't answer than to give you an arbitrary score, right? So that number to me says, sure, 14% of people don't think you're doing it, but it doesn't. It means the people that took this survey were genuinely paying attention to the question, and you're getting a rating system that is good to start a baseline.
So it is informative, right?
Yeah.
Is this residential? Is it commercial, industrial?
No, but it's open to all customers.
Do you
So
have
then,
do you have any idea of like,
the breakdown.
anything like that? Do we get any doubles?
So this is why this is not final data. They'll scrub the data, and there are other questions. One of the questions is about do you know, how the ownership structure of your utility. Trying to get at the awareness of public power, and there's demographic information. There's some other pieces, but I just pulled this piece out. They still have to scrub the data, and still have to.
So, my last question, sorry. to
No,
interrupt.
go ahead.
So, so after seeing this, is it possible to create our own 10-question, fill in the blanks, answer type thing, and send that out to our customers? Like, what innovative programs would you like to see? And get a response, see if we get a response on our own,
I don't see why we couldn't. Right now, we would have to do some significant shifting of priorities to incorporate that, and that's why the goal was, let's try this survey this year. Let's decide if this is the platform we want to use, because we consider other platforms. Hope College has.
well, then you're talking, you got my
I
vote
shouldn't
right
say that,
there.
maybe. No,
Okay.
Hope College.
Won't do a survey because he doesn't want to be biased, but now all of a sudden, we're talking about Hope College, everything's
Yeah.
fine now?
But there are other vehicles for a customer survey.
There's a Hope College graduate, Hope
I'm not
College
saying-
graduate.
I'm just
But
Steve was a Hope
trying to
College
keep us
graduate.
And he
consistent,
left.
that's all.
Huh?
And he left.
I know.
So
He
was there,
abandoned you.
does the survey have an option of just having a comment about every question? Like an
No.
open text?
No.
Because I mean, even just that would be awesome, but even if just said like comments and they could put in X number of characters and
Yeah.
just so they could add in, this really sucked, or this was awesome, or I don't know what this question means.
The one thing
Whatever they
we
put in.
did ask for, I don't know if we ever got it yet or where it is, but we asked if there was anybody, I'd like to know if somebody took the time to fill it out a bunch of times.
Okay.
I've asked
I wondered that,
and-
because when I went into the system, personally, I wondered if I could come back, get out, and then go back in, and then start padding it.
You could,
Number two is when I got to that offering innovative programs and services, I meant to take a screenshot of that and shoot it to you immediately, because in layman's terms, because I'm in marketing for Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's confusing.
yeah, and it's a limitation.
That's a
It-
confusing question.
Yeah, it's a
So
limitation
it's no wonder
of
what
the,
really bottomed out, because people are looking at that going, well, what do you mean by innovative? Does that mean
Well, I
that
think the response to prove your point, right?
Yeah.
28.
they,
Let's
Not
also
They didn't
consider
know
the
what you
top
meant.
two answers there. You add those, 69% of people think basically that we're doing innovative. And even add that next 7%. It's nothing
That's still
to
a good
quibble
answer,
about.
yeah.
It's really, we're doing pretty well.
and the other thing, and I'll say, I've spent a lot of time investing, not recently, but throughout my career, I've looked into customer surveys. There will never be a survey that all 5 board members and all staff
They're gonna agree on.
will agree on. Because there are inherent biases in any survey. We tried to address some of the biases that we saw in that it was only a digital offering. That eliminates and that removes a very large percentage of our customers who just don't have an interest in getting on a computer to do a survey. So we had paper copies available, and we actually had Faith, our part-time employee in the office, was we had them stand up a website separate, and Faith was going in and manually entering all the geriatric responses.
Well, that's what you want too, right? You want a board like that,
That's
where you could
innovative.
never come up with an
What's
incentive.
That's an innovative service.
Yeah, I was just saying, we don't get credit for it, dang it.
That doesn't bother
If
me
they
at all. Like the answers on that, I've taken so many surveys in my life, it's like the fact that there's nothing like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's like not a problem. Who knows, the only thing that really tells me is like, we don't market what we do. Even if we have innovative service and programs, people don't know about them.
They
People don't know about the
don't.
roundup, they don't, we do good on like e-bill and that kind of stuff, we're getting those out there and that's showing well, but like, it kind of just says like, hey, people may not even know that you have.
Or marketing,
these things.
the
It's not that we don't have them, we
Yeah.
probably do, I mean, AMI metering, if we get to the point where
Yeah.
we can do different rate structures, all this kind of stuff, all that's really, really great stuff, but people, you may not do a good job of communicating that these are,
The other
that we're
thing,
leading
yeah,
So the other-
other people.
So that's not to interrupt, but before I lose my thought,
yeah,
programs are more meaningful based on your income level.
Sure.
So we have, our median income is above the state average. We have if we were serving a very large low-income population, those customers are more apt to proactively seek out programs. It's anecdotal evidence, but we have a lot of EV drivers out there. We've marketed some directly, and that hadn't really pushed too much because it's the summer and you don't really want to market your time of use rate in the middle of summer when, nobody's gonna volunteer to have their bills go up. But we're moving into where we can, but if you're an EV driver, if your bill isn't a pain point for you, you're probably not all that interested until you get that bill and you go, oh, it's just another bill. There's a lot of more affluent customers that don't want to think about their electric utility.
I don't even look at my bill.
I'm not trying to be mean, but you
I
really.
gotta think about the electricity used, but it's like, whatever I use.
But
I
if you
gotta
weren't
use,
sitting
man.
on this board,
No,
and that bill- if that bill's not a
paycheck,
pain
I would be
point,
like,
yeah.
hey, my bill went up $7, I'd be like, okay.
So, there's a lot of factors at play with this, but there's something to be learned from it too. Sorry, I interrupted.
to his point, I've taken hundreds of surveys. The fact that there's not a bunch in that column of 10 also proves that people are paying attention, right? Because when you do 95% of surveys, 10 is supposed to be the best. So when you get this, if people aren't paying attention, you expect that 10 column to have huge numbers.
We talked about it a lot in the office, I thoroughly expected mistake surveys.
For it to be like reverse bell
Yeah.
curve.
I did, I'm sitting here going, so we even asked them, like, I've never taken a survey where one was the best.
Now, all the Meyer surveys I do, I click one every time. Not account that I hate them.
Which you did on this survey as well.
No, I read this one, but I knew I was gonna have to show up here in September to answer, so I don't want no trouble. But you also are correct. You want a board where innovative and services and productivity mean something different to 5 people. Otherwise, what do you need 5 people on your board for? Why wouldn't you just have you and Perry would have absolute power, right? Because, which would be super dangerous. But why would you?
There's gotta be a
But
commentary.
you want, right, like what's important to Daniel doesn't have to be important to Andrew, and that's how, absolutely how it should be. It's innovative for, if you have young kids, the light switch covers are an innovative program, right? Because it's helpful to you, where I don't care about it.
Doesn't mean I think it's interesting, this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
This conversation, with tons of positive to highlight, we focus on how we get better.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a bad thing. We talk about it all the time. Sometimes you have to pause and appreciate the positive, but really, we don't get the luxury of resting on our laurels and saying, cool, look at us, we did great.
But in this day and age, not being complacent is innovative, right? Because you're showing we're cheaper than our competitor, we're more reliable than our competitor. How easy would it be to go, that's good enough? But that's not what you're doing. That's innovative, in my opinion. That's an innovative program. Asking your ratepayers for their opinions is innovative. Most, there's plenty of companies that don't care at all, like Meyer and their ones.
I will say, this is a really tough baseline.
And
This is really tough to improve on.
Diving in, willing to be self-critical, why are we low here?
Exactly.
It'll catch us if we slip.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
The baseline, I said that when I got here though, I said that the baseline for bad debt was the baseline. It's not gonna get any better. It's got better for 3 years, so.
Okay, let's move on.
All right. Performance data,
Yeah.
all right, look at this, we're gonna get out of here by 8, right?
No, no.
All right, performance data, so we had a great sales month. This is the second month of the new graph here. You can see the orange is the sales for this year. You know, like I mentioned in the graph, you can't really see much in the cumulative data, but you can start to see that it's trending towards the top side. But overall, the month to month, we're very average July, followed up with best August we've probably ever had in terms of volumetric sales. It was really hot.
is that the highest month ever, or is it?
Yes, I would imagine so. You go back much further and we've had a lot of load growth, organic load growth that would make it highly, highly unlikely to have hit that.
I kept my place 2 degrees cooler this year.
That's what I like to hear.
Contribution.
He's one of my favorite
Favorite
customers.
residential customer, buddy, in the summertime.
63 degrees.
63 degrees.
Yay!
Put a hoodie on or don't come over. I prefer the second one.
I refuse to turn the furnace on until November, so.
That's what I'm talking
I
about.
don't care about that, that's consumers.
Excuse me?
I said, that's consumers' money.
Excuse me?
We need to get you a heat.
I believe the fan is electric.
I believe the fan, that is true.
It might be natural gas, but
What a
it's.
heat pumping. What a heat pumping. No. Good sales month though. We'll move on. Industrial sales. Industrial sales were way up again. But last year started a little slow with industrial sales. We'll see. Sorry.
When you're seeing industrial, are we seeing a difference? Is the grow facility kicking in and are we seeing a big, because again, we were led to believe, whatever, oh, that's gonna be one of our largest customers, blah, 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 and we just, it didn't happen. I think they had delays or whatever.
They had really big delays. I think the initial estimates were a little inflated too. Actually, I know they were. We scaled way back on, and they're only, the original proposal was a two-phase development. And then when they remarketed it, it was only done in one phase, but if you really dug into their plans, it truly was a two-phase. So we've only seen about half of it, but even with that half, I think it probably came on about 50% of, at best, of anticipated load. Revised load, one of the things that when, some decisions were being made when I took the position, so it's one of the first things I kind of dug into. We revised some projections and scaled them back a little bit, but even the revised scaled back projections, they're not hitting that. But included in this number is
Well,
not even the grow facility, because
well,
they,
this is not
Yeah.
included.
the grow facility technically doesn't fall, it technically falls under a commercial rate, even though it really is an industrial application, but metering determines whether, how it's metered determines whether it's industrial or commercial, and our industrial customers are metered at the 12,470 voltage, so they're metered on the primary side of things, where commercial customers are metered on secondary, so
That, they fall in.
they fall into that bucket.
Okay.
Now, the industrial sales do include Grand Rapids Gravel Company, which I believe is running about 350 kW right now. I think the grow facility is running similar, so some of the numbers that the Grand Rapids Gravel, the sample bills that they shared with us indicated that they expected over, right around a megawatt of load. We scaled that back some, but I think, I'm not sure if they've not brought in all the equipment they're planning on bringing in, or if they scaled back their plans, but they've been a moving target. trying to think of what other industrial customers, it's just them that's really changed. It went from 7 to 8
Yep.
on the count.
Who increased?
Root Lowell
Well,
had we've seen a little uptick from Root Lowell with an expansion that they did, or they brought in, not expansion, but they brought in some additional lines. But it's a lot of, I think the heat drove a lot of this, especially if I had to guess, any customer that relies on refrigeration, industrial customer that relies on refrigeration saw a major increase in their bill last month. Commercial, again, way ahead, had a good month. And commercial sales last year were pretty high. Commercial sales last year trended almost every month. Well, you get past October, but they tended to trend ahead of the previous year. We ended up finishing the year last year way ahead of the previous year. So residential is the goofy one, and we've still seen reductions in, it was still better than last year, but overall residential sales are just, not trending upward, even though we have quite a bit of new growth. I think a lot of it is the fact that our new residential growth is coming from new construction that's
More efficient.
much more efficient. I live in a new construction home, and
Yeah, better furnace, better insulation.
better windows.
Better windows, yeah.
Yeah, there's just, everything's LED. I mean, and lighting's only about 10% of your bill, but every light in the house on anything new is automatically LED. I think you can't get less than, I don't remember, 14 SEER HVAC unit right now. I can't remember what the minimum standard is, but we've seen that minimum standard creep up. So it's not definitive, but I found this number interesting, that we didn't see a more significant increase at the residential level, because you think a lot of your residential load is very much air conditioner driven in the summer.
Quick question. I think I know the answer. But when we're saying fiscal year '24, you're saying that what ends in '24? Because it's we're fiscal year '23/24.
Yeah, but we call it fiscal year '24.
Okay.
We're in 24 now.
Yeah, we're in fiscal year '24, because it's the end date.
Okay.
You're July to July like we are.
Yeah. All right, other than that, I won't touch much on cost per kilowatt hour. I will touch on briefly on investments in cash. We saw a pretty good increase again in investments in cash. We're hoping that trend continues. We do have a large payment upcoming to Newkirk Electric contractor. They're most of the way done, half the way done. They'll wrap up the last pieces of the project fairly quickly, and then that project cost is, or the contractor cost is right at $160-ish, $161,000. So we'll have a large cash payment go out here in the next month or two, probably 2 months out. But from a cash perspective, increased about $140,000 in cash, with just under $90,000 of that coming from the actual operating account. So continuing to improve our cash position quite a bit.
So we are not, what are we doing with the vehicle replacement fund? We're not,
Continuing to fund it.
but we're not, are we putting monthly, or we?
Yes, monthly. So
What I'm looking, and maybe I've got the wrong color, but I'm looking at that dark. Okay, so, all right, so
You don't notice it, but if you look,
It
you
is
can,
fattening, yeah.
it's slowly fattening. You just don't. It's
what do you make?
So what's that's the dark blue is the,
This is Fifth Third. It goes from, correct me if I'm wrong, but this way
Does it,
stacks up.
would it be
Yes.
possible to change those colors at some point? I know it's.
because I'm looking at, that's what I was doing.
A lot more differentiated.
So what I was looking at, I was just looking at, the dark I was thinking the vehicle replacement was that number, and it was just staying
No.
at that same.
This is Fifth Third Investments,
Vehicle replacement.
Huntington Bank. vehicle replacements, bond redemption fund, Huntington Investments.
So you're saying, so that vehicle
I'm
replace, because I was,
getting off.
okay, so that's just,
So, I'm
small
happy to
amount?
change colors. The reasoning behind the two colors is, blue is unrestricted and orange is restricted. So I'm happy to change those colors, but that's why they're two colors and different shades.
so how much, I'm looking, so how much money is in our vehicle replacement fund currently? Because again, when I'm looking at that, I'm going, oh, $2 million is in our,
What's the?
No, like Charlie said, I mean, it goes from left to right at the bottom and then you go up. So your third investment is your first one.
So right now, the vehicle replacement fund is $122,565.
okay, so he likes the graphs, I like the numbers. So I would like to know what this number is, and probably not so much here, because I can go from here to here, but what this number is, what this number is, what that number is, what that number is.
I guess my
I'm-
question would be, and
Why?
it's not, yes, I'm not trying to, there's no easy way to ask it, but we talk enough that I don't think they'll take offense. What do you want to accomplish with that?
I just like to know.
Just information.
Information, so I'm always for me, our cash investment, yeah, okay, but it's like, I wanna know, where are we with vehicle replacement fund? And I say that because, not necessarily us, but the city was not paying into their, all of a sudden they needed equipment, they had no money for equipment. I just want to make sure that because we have this, how much is that new bucket truck costing us?
TBD.
To be determined. We have an approximate.
270.
Right, but I just want it finally comes.
300 somewhere.
What do you think, Ryan? What do you think it's gonna be actually? I'd love to know your
I would
opinion.
say 3 to 325.
That's probably.
Should we start?
Purchase price, the originally quoted price was around 260. I would agree that I'd be surprised if it came in under 300.
Start a pool for an estimate of what we think it's gonna
So,
be. Whoever gets it right gets the.
Closest without going over.
First ride in a new truck or something.
so for me, I wanna make sure that we are contributing to that. So at the time, we don't have to rob this account to buy, that we have that number in our vehicle replacement fund.
Yes.
And that's, so again, looking at that, I have no idea how much is in there.
Well, that's probably the only fund you care about a tangible value, right?
And you get the actual amounts to populate next to the name?
Yes,
You can-
yes, you're right. Of all the things that are up there, the one that I'm concerned about, the rest of them, Huntington Bank, what's in the bank, what's in the investments, but
And I guess the next
Yeah, that's right.
question I would ask is from a board perspective, can we accomplish that
We just did.
Another one.
through a non-monthly reoccurring process? That is my fear, and we
He did,
see
right?
it.
He asked you guys, and he told them the answer within a minute, so.
Yeah, and that's my thought is, I'm happy to share whatever information, but we've seen it before where, you have a graph and it's, what about this? Oh, what about this? And then all of a sudden you got a graph that has so much information on it, you don't know what it is, or so many data points, or you're trying to visually show something, and you have all these numbers in.
And that's why I
Graphs
sort
are a
of,
pain in the butt sometimes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That's why I kind of feel
Really the numbers
That's like,
in
I kind of feel-
another vehicle replacement fund, 125.
That's this year's capital budget,
That's
though.
this,
Yeah.
Which we can always report out. We can.
do away with all the graphs.
Andrew is crawling, his skin is crawling right now.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I kind of, like, when you're talking about what we can do to the grass, I kind of feel bad about my color comment, because now that you explained what it's for, I was like, okay.
Well,
I like that.
that-
Well, you couldn't, one thought is just, can you put the legend on the side so everything's in order, and then you know that, okay,
Well-
on the bottom is X and the top is Y, or vice versa. But
The other piece.
But I mean, other than that, now that we know what to look for, at least it's easier to read, but.
The other piece is, well, Megan might kill me if I keep talking, so.
Okay, let's move on.
Well,
All right. No, this is crap. It's just, I struggle with it. I tell you what I do with this, Harry's not gonna like the answer. Because he doesn't have access to it.
Yeah, you hover over the.
No, this is where I just go straight, I mean, this is what I look at, but it's all of our.
Table that generates the graph, yeah.
Yeah, it's all of our performance data, so we have lots of information in here, and this has a lot of granular information for me. It's always a challenge to try and decide what the staff need, what level of information does the board need, and when and why.
He's right at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I just know, there's been several times when someone says, look at the seventh blue thing, and, or the, you know, or, I remember even Steve has done that, where, you know, he would say, well, if you look at, not that blue, but the other blue that's a little bit lighter than the other blue, and the number of times we've had to go through that, I was like, there's gotta be a better way to present this, but now that when you mentioned the color, the orange and blue thing, I was like, I don't wanna change that kind of cool.
I will say it's easier to look at when you're not looking up on the TV screen.
Yeah.
Like it, I think that adds the glare with the lights and it's hard to differentiate.
That must be.
It's easier if you're looking at it.
What happens if you're colorblind?
Then you got a lot of money according to that.
I can see it just fine.
Holy crap, we got $3 million unrestricted funds.
Well, not many people are orange blue colorblind.
I was gonna say, I don't know all the different types of colorblind, but.
Red, green, orange, blue,
Good
green,
job.
other stuff.
Aging analysis, all right.
So, maybe find guys colorblind.
Actually, the only other thing I want to highlight performance data, I'll stand on the rest of it, is want to mention, there was a huge jump in paperless bills. Those are always interesting to see, it's just bigger efforts. So the office staff ran a campaign in partnership with Invoice Cloud to try and get customers that are on auto pay to go paperless. And one of the nice things with the partnership that was really forced on us, but it's turned into a great partnership with Invoice Cloud, is they have a vested interest in seeing our customers go paperless because they charge us per paperless bill, but they don't charge us if that customer still receives a paper bill. So we obviously want to reduce the number of paper bills that we send out. So they help us with these campaigns.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Finish.
Oh, no. Are you one of them?
I'm just realizing I'm upset because I don't have a line for me up there. How many paper billings do we have?
Many paper billings.
You know, if we had a line of how many paper billings we had. So add that to your graph.
Well, you just look
Make it the same blue as the other one, just.
I'll make it one shade lighter. Make it. I think we should have all gray graph. I think every line should just be gray.
Yeah, they're.
Just put a Perry line on every
I
graph.
love this.
Make it bright pink. Just let it go.
I was gonna say, I'd love to see one where it's just got a dot.
See the Perry line staying steady.
Just have it go up and down.
So we still, what do we have in customers? So we still have,
Like over 3,000.
31.
3,100.
Yeah,
So we have over half of our customers now are on paperless bill, which is, I have to believe that's a higher than normal adoption level for,
300 people.
what's that?
It says like a 300 person jump or something.
Yeah, it was big.
Yeah.
Like, that's a giant.
And what it was they, you know, basically were given an opportunity, hey, if you want to continue to receive a paper bill, you need to let us know. You're on auto pay. And then we kind of migrated those customers, and any of them that want to keep getting a paper bill, we'll send them a paper bill. But there's usually, anytime we do these programs, there's an opportunity for something to fall through the cracks, and we work really well with our customers, that if it causes any negative impact to the customer, we address that. But you know, it's usually 1% at most. Nobody really cares, so the anomaly that comes up here and there, and I didn't hear of any.
so I had to reply back if I didn't want to be on paperless?
Well, you're not on auto pay.
You're not on auto pay.
Oh, okay.
We assume that if you're writing us a check.
Perry's in the jump.
Are you making Teresa write the check every month?
Hey,
Or
you
you
write
write
the
the checks?
How many,
Right there is Perry.
Perry, yeah.
He was the very first one.
You're not on paperless auto pay and you pay with a paper check?
And you didn't do it, sir?
Let's not kid
And you
ourselves.
didn't do the survey?
Let's not kid ourselves. How many, are we talking about Harry or Teresa?
No, if it was
Teresa.
Teresa, she'd be in the blue. This is.
No,
No, Teresa wants to come say hi to us every month.
She
You
runs,
can still do that. I'm on auto
She
pay,
does-
not auto pay, but I'm on paperless and I
pays
still
her,
come in and say
pays
hello.
her water bill and with an addition, and Lowell Light and Power with additional $5 that goes to
A plus.
A plus.
You can do that on auto pay.
Just saying, right?
We can add that to each of them.
You know, it's
Yeah,
odd.
but then we gotta keep track of how much money we got in the bank. This way,
Holy moly.
if it's auto
You
pay,
write a check. You
huh?
gotta make sure your check doesn't bounce.
Well, Teresa does. Harry
Let's
doesn't do
get
it.
back to that Harry and Teresa conversation.
Well, you can't well, you, never mind, we're on camera.
All right, so that's about all I had for this report. The only thing left is PCA. We did see a little downward movement in the PCA. We'll see what happens next month. I'd like to see some trends downward would be fantastic in the PCA, but
I just wanted to ask a little bit about that.
Yes.
Split there. I mean, what's,
it's just volumetric. The shape will always be the same.
yeah,
But trying to give a magnitude of how much revenue, you know, so what's the actual PCA on a per unit basis, and then what's the total revenue, so, that's all that difference is.
because the goal is to have them as close together as possible, no matter.
No, it fluctuates, it's really just it's providing the same shape, but two pieces of information. What's total revenue and what's the actual PCA? Because your total revenue, you can't take your change in total revenue and get a PCA change because your volume,
And because there was a higher volume,
yes, because there was a higher volume or I'd have to think through exactly, I don't want to do the math wrong, but
I think I know what
yeah,
you're saying.
the shape has, intuitively, the shape is going to stay the same, it's gonna go up, it's gonna go down, but you'll notice that there are, we sold a whole lot of kilowatt hours, so the PCA and the total revenue, total revenue grew here, I was backwards. Total revenue grew more than the PCA grew because we were collecting that PCA over a higher volume of sales.
Okay.
So, high sales,
Yep.
got that up. And then I believe Ryan has a few things to talk about when it comes to outages, so. I will hand it over to him to talk storm. I believe that's basically everything in the outage report.
Yeah, that was a pretty busy month. Was a couple different outages other than the storm. On the 17th, there was a carpool accident on Overlay.
I forgot about that.
Somebody broke a pole when they went off the road, caused a little damage out there. And then on the 23rd, there was an overloaded fuse on Monroe that was basically heat related. It was pretty darn hot that day. We're thinking it just couldn't handle it anymore. And then everything else you see on the outage list there is all a result of that large storm that blew through. We did lose all of Circuit 204, which is pretty much everything south of the Grand River. That whole circuit went completely offline because of a big tree right near Guilford and Grand River tipped over onto the main line. The tree was actually leaning towards the railroad tracks forever. We weren't even threatened by it, but the way this storm blew in, it literally blew it back the other way and then made it go onto our line. So pretty good one there. And then a couple broken poles at Lowell. Up that street, there was 2 broken poles on a tap off of the main line on Lowell that went back off to the east. Took quite a while there. One crew was there for a fair amount of time. Wire was all down, 2 broken poles. That's a pretty big piece of stuff to do. Primary wire down at Pine Grove and Fun Street. There was wire down there. There was wire down on the 300 block of Washington. Only tree limbs there at the 960, 990 Washington area. Some tree limbs broke off up top on some really tall pine trees and just landed on our stuff and caused it to blow the fuse. And then the other single locations, the Lowell, Jefferson, and Avery locations were all locations where the service mast was ripped completely off of the home because of the trees falling on it, so they needed electrician work. That's why it took longer for them to get repaired, because the electrician needed to do a lot of stuff, and then we could hook them up.
Do we report on here their full outage time,
Yes,
even though we
We
didn't
did.
have control over restoration efforts?
yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we did it. We just put the time in on the outage login as when the meter came back to life. I mean, we really didn't have to, I guess, but, yeah.
We can have a separate conversation offline, and we can dive into that a little bit, but all in all, it was a heck of a storm.
Yeah, it was pretty significant. Everyone knows when they drove around town and seen damage in their neighbor's yard or whatever it was. So it blew a lot of things over. A lot of trees were damaged. A lot of stuff was tore up. The trees mostly, I mean, only one roof that I saw off the church right there was blown loose, but other than that, just a lot of tree damage.
Will you go to the customer comment section real quick? So Emily pulled together, just some kind words that community shared throughout the outage. I'm guessing she pulled most of these from Facebook, but I thought it was pretty neat. So a lot of really, really positive comments, a lot of tremendous community support.
I think one of the coolest things for myself when I drove into town the night that the storm hit is a decision that we made a while ago when we put a lot of effort into getting most of the customers off of Circuit 207 except for King Milling and making that a very reliable circuit. But the stoplight at Grand River and Hudson out there was normally fed from 204, which was the circuit that was knocked offline. We made the choice a couple of years ago to actually feed that from 207, knowing that 207 was more reliable. It was pretty darn cool when we come rolling down the hill into town with trees all over the place that stoplight was actually working. Because during a storm, when stoplights aren't working, that makes it just that much more dangerous when you're trying to go somewhere. And I thought that was pretty awesome, and I think we should pat ourselves on the back for that small little move, but that's big. Really, in the grand scheme of things, and that could ruin someone's day if they're not paying attention, big time.
Could have saved somebody's life.
Right.
You never know the disaster that you avoid.
Yep. No, it's really a neat thing to see when I come rolling down the hill and that light was working. It's like, man, we made that choice. This is working because of that.
I think the other thing that's important. That's good. I missed that one at first. I think the other thing that's important to highlight, I've shared with King Milling, but it avoided an outage. The circuit under the Grand River, adding 204, going under the Grand River, and putting everything south of the river on a separate circuit, prevented King Milling from being out. Which I even asked him. I said, I'm sure it's not a big deal on Friday night or Thursday night at 9 o'clock. I mean, maybe it is. I asked him, I said, is it a big deal? I initially think he goes, it's huge.
It is.
It's huge this time of year with the wheat harvest and how much processing and, yeah, it was big and small wins, for sure.
Yeah, and there's, a lot of areas when we go around on our system and start putting all this stuff back together, it became clear right away that, you know how many people we have here and what they're doing, and see all of these things adding up on your list. We needed to call in at least one crew for help, so we made the call over to Han. They were able to get us a 2-man crew.
So this is, if you want to explain this piece of equipment, this is pretty neat.
This little unit, it's a track unit, it's able to go through a 36-inch wide gate.
Wow.
Like to get into a backyard, so that thing can get really small.
That's correct.
And it can go into a backyard or into an area where you can't get your giant trucks into, and they were able to get in there and make it a lot easier to set the broken pole that was back along that fence in a backyard area. our guys would have got it done, without using a unit like this. We would have done some rigging and it would have worked, but this made it a whole lot simpler and it was really, really neat. And I honestly, we don't need one of these things here. This is the first time we've needed one in the whole time I've worked here, so don't think we're looking to add this to our equipment list because we don't need it. We have a mini excavator.
Where did that come from?
Holland.
City on.
What does, I mean, so I'm gonna, because as things keep getting, you might not need it right now, but as more and more things,
We want.
subdivisions are developed and everything else, what does one of those units cost?
I'll say first thing, we will never voluntarily put a pole in somebody's backyard unless it's the last resort.
That unit right there, the trailer and all the accessories that went along with it was $275.
I'll say 250. It's a truck, I mean, I think it said a 55, 60-foot pole. I don't know what.
Probably could do a 50 footer pretty easily. I wouldn't go much more than that.
Do we have a bigger chipper than them?
Well, we do, yeah.
Still a pretty good deal for $275, I would say.
270.
I think we should get one. Harry, let them have a chat.
As we keep putting things more underground, like the whole dock addition project, that whole neighborhood prior to making it underground, you would have needed a unit like this for future maintenance in there. And making that decision to do that in that neighborhood eliminated the need of this thing. I mean, yeah, it was pretty expensive to do all that, but that's a forever thing that you'll never need a backyard unit for.
And with all the upgrades that you're doing on the east side of
Yep.
town, you're gonna eliminate probably
Yep.
most of all of the backyard crossovers.
Every year that goes by, you're less and less need for something like this here.
Okay, so there's some other pictures. The one non-related, storm-related picture that Ryan sent me that I thought was really interesting, we shared. Things go wrong.
So,
That was not storm-related either.
so my first question, when I saw that, was somebody target practice at the lines? Shooting at an insulator?
So, what happens with this, it's plastic insulator. So, this is a 1-inch threaded lead-headed insulator pin right here. When the guys put these insulators on there, and if you get a little bit too aggressive or put a wrench on it, which you're supposed to just hand tighten these things, what ends up happening over time is this actually drives up into the plastic to where it actually starts to break it. Then water gets down in there, then it starts to short out, and then it starts to melt it, and then that's the result of how that happens. If you just over tighten them style, that it's happened 2 times on that line. Both look just like this when they were done, and we determined it was just over tightening. Don't know how we would go back and check them all, but they kind of sorted themselves out now.
So now, with that,
How long?
do you have to replace any of that wire, or you just put a new insulator on
The
and?
wire wasn't damaged at all.
Okay.
So it was still good and intact, so we just put a new insulator on top of that insulator pin and tied it back in, and it's all good to go.
How old are those insulators?
That was built around 2018, 2017, 2018, right in there. They're not that old.
Yeah. So do you think the worst of what would happen has failed? You know what I mean? What's gonna fail has failed?
Yeah, you just, the old school method of putting insulators onto lead head pins like that is you use a piece of rope and like a little cheater handle to really get them good and tight, and you cannot do that with these. You have to hand tighten them only. If you can't get it all the way quite to where you want, and you need half more turn, no, just go back the other way and leave it loose, or it'll do this. I've watched them break, I've tightened them like an old school insulator and watched it break it right there, and it was like, holy cow. And you just have to know that.
All right, thanks for the outage report. We will roll on to income statement. Moving right along, the report a very positive month, $245,000 positive net income. Purchase power came in under budget. Managing expenses, revenues came in as expected roughly, so definitely trending way ahead of budget right now. But it's nice to have a good month starting the year. Puts us in a really good position to absorb fluctuation throughout the rest of the year, especially when you compare prior year-to-date actual right at $35,000. Current year-to-date actual is over $320,000 of positive net income. That's a good, much better situation than last year. Granted, last year we still finished quite all right, but this time last year we were still experiencing really high natural gas prices, driving energy prices really high. Last year's NOx compliance, transmission expenses, a lot of things came in really high last year that really drove down that net income, but we're still trending ahead of our current year budget. And we'll, right now, knock on wood, our power costs that we're accruing in September are not really, they're not astronomical, so we're in a pretty good position to carry this forward next month, but at some point we will be paying for coal, and next month we'll be paying for coal for the summer, and there will be natural fluctuations in the financials throughout the year, but to start the year and put ourselves in this position after 2 months, we're really in a good position to absorb or hopefully not get caught off guard by fluctuations in our financial position for the rest of the year. Happy to answer any questions, but with that, I will move on. Capital projects, only real thing to highlight here, if you'll scroll back up there, I just want to highlight that we are pulling out, seeing some motion on those east side feed projects. And we're just separating out, what are the contractor pieces and then what are the pieces that are part of what we're calling the satellite projects. The outside crews, Ryan's guys have been focused heavily on rebuilding Monroe and getting the underground conduit, the underground portion of the feed from under the river up to Front Street. So we made really good progress on the satellite projects, but wanted to just highlight that we did bring pull those out separately. So other than that, that's all I really want to highlight on capital projects outside of any questions that anybody might have, and that I'll roll on to the manager's report. A couple things to highlight real quick. Did participate in MPPA strategic plan update held in Holland. It was an all-day affair facilitated by Steve Vandermeer. It was a really interesting process just to be a part of. There were executive staff, executive committee, and then just a couple additional utilities. But obviously the industry is going through significant changes and very quick changes, so there was a lot of debate on what MPPA's role should be moving forward, and it was really healthy conversation, some differing opinions, and sparked my interest quite a bit. I'm interested to see where the strategic direction of MPPA goes, but really it gets you excited about what they do. They've got a great staff, and it was a pleasure to participate in that. Other than that, MMEA Fall Conference is next week. We don't have a MMEA board meeting this month, but MMEA has established a small legislative subcommittee to review legislation, mostly energy-related legislation, but there's some open meetings act stuff. But the governor has really made it one of her top priorities in the second half of this year to push for some environmental and energy legislation. So we're just kind of staying in touch with that and having some conversations, trying to make sure that our perspective is considered as the legislature looks to update some legal grounds. We'll roll on through a few things. Go down to the RP3 application. We will be submitting our RP3 application before I leave for Marquette next Tuesday. So it's been a great process. I actually got some feedback from the leadership team on Monday I think, I don't want to speak for them, but got a lot of positive comments on the process. It was very much, we took it as, wanted to use the opportunity to bring the whole leadership team together and use it as an opportunity to tear down some silos a little bit and make sure everybody could see across the whole organization, especially at the leadership level. So Ryan got a peek into some financials, and Julie and Megan got a peek into some safety and operational and job site inspection. There's just different areas of the application, but we all came together, reviewed the whole application, had some very good conversations. Everybody had their marching orders. Everybody kind of separated, and we just kept coming together, separating, doing a little bit of work, pulling back together. So we started this process beginning of May, I believe. So we're a solid 2-3 months into this at this point.
I think you actually started the day after
Wow.
the day
Yes.
after you submit it, because you have to keep track of everything.
We have been working directly with the application since then, but yes, this is a continuous thing. And Lisa has very much been involved throughout the whole process. She's been invaluable in guiding a lot of the application process, and she's learned a lot. We actually have a follow-up already scheduled after we submit everything to just review the process, and now that she has a better understand what more can be done between application cycles or during the application cycle to prepare ourselves. But the process highlighted areas where we do absolutely fantastic. It's also shown us some areas where we have the opportunity to focus a little of our attention on, and we can make improvements. So all things considered, we're very happy with how the application turned out and pretty confident that the outcome will be favorable. So we'll see. We will see. I did include in your board packet a graph showing the cycle, so you all have an idea of where we are. At this point, applications are due by the end of September. The month of October, it kind of looks like they basically do the initial review. Then the reviewing committee will send out, what do they call them? RFIs, requests for information. So any questions that they don't think they have the sufficient information to score, they'll reach back out. Last application, we had 2 RFIs, I believe. So there will be some time where we'll have the opportunity to reply to RFIs. And then in January, we'll be notified of our designation, and then they hand out the actual awards at the Engineering Operations Conference in the spring. And we'll definitely be looking for Light and Power representation to attend that conference and represent Light and Power to receive the award.
Kansas City, I think,
Sounds right, but I'm not sure, honestly.
because it's right after, I think that's where the
The rodeo.
rodeo is. It was supposed to be in Kansas City during COVID, and it got canceled, and they kept the other ones on their rotation, and now it's going back to Kansas City, and the rodeo's that weekend, and the conferences on Monday.
Yeah. Moving on, I want to give a little update on the IT. Interestingly enough, we had our first real test of some of our new IT equipment. He had a switch fail. Granted, it was a brand new switch, which is not ideal, but we came in, identified that there was a problem, immediately got on the phone with IP Consulting, troubleshot the problem, did an immediate temporary fix to reallocate anything fed out of that switch to the other switches. IP Consulting put in a ticket with the manufacturer. The next day we had a brand new switch sitting there. Casey put it in, and we were back up and running. So it was the first test of the new systems that we put in place. Energy saving trees, tree giveaway is this Saturday. Anybody can participate. Love to have anybody there. We're gonna
Get you a free shirt.
yeah, 9 to noon. 8
Breakfast at 7:30.
I don't remember.
AM?
Nine.
No, that's what I thought, yeah.
In the morning?
Yeah. Breakfast,
Okay.
breakfast about 8:30. I'm gonna get in early and cook breakfast. You're welcome to come.
Hard pass. No, 8:30 AM?
Holiday. Yeah, right in the line, get them as they're coming in.
I have no value to anybody at 8:30 in the morning, I promise. If you can offer to come get me, it's still gonna be hard now.
I'll knock on your door.
You can.
I can pound loud enough, you wanna wake up.
Power off.
Why can't you? It'll be even better.
No, it'll get warmer than 63 in your house though.
Oh. I would just vote to sell then. I don't know what else possibly you could do. Why can't you have breakfast at 4 PM like normal people?
I'll have some Oreo cookies and a Kickstart for you. I mean,
Okay, now you have my attention. And what time? I'm just kidding. I'll be there at 4 PM for breakfast, okay? I could probably, because I love light power, I could probably push it back to 2:33 PM if you really need it.
You call me, I'll come find you at 2:30.
Final offer.
I'll get away.
But also want to mention Public Power Week is right around the corner. We will not have another board meeting before Public Power Week.
And Lisa's got, if you haven't looked on your thing, she's got to all the board, I'm assuming maybe all employees,
Yeah.
but the board members, 3 or 4 different things, so.
Yeah, so it's always fun. They do a great job in the office pulling all that together. Going to be another exciting week. Want to highlight something briefly. It's really just to kind of make you all aware of a change at the city, but also fill you in on some of the activities that we have. The city has voted to move to a 4-day work week. City Hall is going to be closed on Fridays.
A pilot program.
Pilot program, yes, it's a 3-month trial, we'll say. But the city's moving to 7 to 5:30. Again, just make the board aware of that. We kind of is working similar to something, I don't think similar, but we're not recommending any changes. One thing I will bring to attention is one of the things that the city did with the move is they moved from an unpaid lunch to a paid lunch. So that's just to be aware. But for us, we're not recommending any schedule changes at this point, but there is a potential to leverage a schedule change to advance strategic goals that we have in the office. For the last 2+ years, Julie, Megan, and I have really worked, 2 years, is that fair? Right?
Yeah.
Probably 2 years, we've really been focused on staff development in the office. We've got Julie and Megan that have been with Light Power for a long time. The other 3 women in the office who do an amazing job, combined have less time at Light and Power than Julie. So the focus has been on developing them, and they all, Lisa, Emily, and Hillary are our primary customer-facing employees. They do basically all the customer service work. But they all are customer service reps, and then they have an additional job title or additional duty. Emily does she's our communications specialist. Lisa's I don't know what her technical title is, utility services specialist. She does all of our, EWRs, you all know what she does. And then Hillary does our billing, and she's our lead CSR, and takes on those roles. So one of our strategic goals has been to find opportunities to maximize the skill sets that we have. We have what I'm going to call the strongest office staff we've ever had as a utility. I'll put the 5 of them up against anybody that's ever worked for Light and Power without even knowing them, knowing how good our current group is. We need to find, and it's been a strategic goal for us to find opportunities to allow them to focus on their secondary job titles, because they bring tremendous value to the utility. I think it goes, we've already talked a little bit about communication. Craig mentions, just looking at things, how things have changed. Emily has revamped quite a bit of our marketing efforts, and you all don't see some of the internal communication efforts that she does. Probably next month I'll probably put up a sample, but she's developed internal communication strategies to try and tear down some of the silos with having two facilities. And we've also looked at a lot of process evaluation. Let's do our best to let computers do the work computers can do and focus and make sure that people are doing the work that only people can do. So it's been a huge strategic goal for the last 2+ years. And one of the things that we've identified is two things: is creating dedicated time that allows them to focus on their secondary responsibilities and minimizing disruptions. I think minimizing disruptions is one of the most important things we can do to improve efficiencies. And actually, just so the board is kind of aware of some of the steps that, they have other value to them, but they've all fit inside this office staff development strategic goal. But the promotion of auto pay, paperless billing, things like that, minimizes simple interactions with customers, so it minimizes disruptions. Paperless billing minimizes certain disruptions. They've implemented an online application for new service that gives them the flexibility to work that in instead of when a customer comes in having to allocate 30 minutes right there. Customers can do that on their time and we can respond on our time. So it really minimizes disruptions and improves the efficiencies. We brought in a part-time employee. The office I'm not sure if when the last time the office had a dedicated part-time employee, but one of the goals in bringing Faith in was to help accomplish some of the tasks that are the disruptions. She does a lot of processing payments, clearing out the Dropbox, and just helping out filing things, doing things that are just inefficient for other people as they're trying to allow them to focus across the spectrum of their responsibilities. But these things haven't been done just to do. They've all been done as part of this strategic objective. So was it May that you all started this? I got with Megan in May. I knew that I wanted to see if we could understand customer patterns so we could accomplish our goals without it while minimizing any impact on the customer. So one of the things that they've done now since May, so we're 3.5 months in, May, June, August, 4 months in, they've been documenting when customers come in. What hour of the day do they come in?
What is
And
their average?
what do they come in for by day? So we're starting to get trends in when during the day. Let me tell you, it is not when you think it would be. I've been blown away at when customers come in, because intuitively you're like, oh yeah, that lunch hour's got to be really busy. You see the first 2 hours of the day, very little people come in. And then from 11 to 1, the time that I thought we would see a spike, we don't see it, we actually see a lull. And then it ramps up towards the end of the day. But one of the things that we would want to look at is potentially reducing the number of hours that we're open to the public and allowing for some more flexibility with time, but also allowing for office hours where we're not open to the public so the office staff can focus on it. And what's driving me that direction is the opportunities to conduct business with us in non-face-to-face methods, whether that's online, over the phone. And I understand that that's not all customers' preferences, and we wouldn't ever propose to eliminate that. But we've been looking at how much cash do we take in a month? Because that's the one payment type that really should be a face-to-face transaction. We shouldn't be encouraging customers to drop as the normal drop cash in the Dropbox. There are times when it just has to happen, but really the Dropbox is for checks. But we only take on. And we invoiced over $1 million in August. We will take in $8,000 or $9,000 a month in cash. So if you look at the percentage of our revenue that comes from cash, it's a really small percentage. Which tells me there are opportunities, and we wouldn't propose anything just to propose something. We're to follow suit with the city, which if it makes sense for the city, fantastic, but just because it makes sense for the city doesn't mean it necessarily makes sense for us, but something similar might make sense. Like I said, don't have any proposals now by any means, but wanted to throw this out there because it has been the timing seemed appropriate with the city making their move. And then there's an opportunity for what I'd like to look at, and something that I've been, that we've done kind of unofficially in the office, is provide as much flexibility and time as possible. To understand what are our needs to serve the customer, and how can we provide our employees with as much flexibility as we can accommodate while it not being to the detriment of our mission or vision or what we're here to do, or to the detriment of the customer. So what we've implemented some flex time where the office staff has the opportunity to rotate, making up some time throughout the week and leaving early on Friday. These are employee retention tools. One thing that I think would go a long way in building from an employee retention tool is looking at how many hours do our employees have to dedicate to light and power in order to make their 40 hours a week. Right now, it's 9 hours Monday through Friday because they have they all have to take a 1 hour unpaid lunch in order to meet their 40 hours so we can stay open for the duration of the day. So I want to look at opportunities to potentially move towards either reducing the length of the required unpaid lunch, or potentially going as far as the city and transitioning that to a shorter paid lunch. There's some uniquenesses that we have that I'm not, like I said, not ready to make a proposal yet, but want to throw it out there. If there's any board comments or any thoughts that the board has, I really much appreciate them, because this would be a big change, and something that would be it'd be really important to proactively communicate to our customers and really get out there in bills and newsletters and press releases and trying to get it out, because what we don't want is our customers to feel like we are less available or we're more difficult to do business with. But if we can advance other strategic goals and we can gain more on the advances than we lose on the negative side of things, then I think it's still something that we should consider versus expanding staff to free up time. This is a potential flat expense standard, or flat from an expense standpoint, opportunity to provide a more focused environment for such an awesome team. They do a really great job. I'm honestly curious if I could give them all 4 hours a week to focus on something else. What could they do? Because some of the small things that you all never see, I'm impressed with. I've gone over some of the things in previous board meetings, but they're a really creative group. They work great together, and if we could give them some focused time, I think we could really advance the utility.
I think this is one of the most intriguing ideas I've heard in a long time. I think this is a really cool strategy, I guess, to try and explore, and I think it's definitely worthwhile. Because that whole distraction, there's fatigue associated with that, right? And so I think it's good to find a way to get them some time to actually work on projects, so to speak, or whatever they're trying to do. And you mentioned about trying to be cost neutral or whatever, but I kind of feel like it's, in the long run, it's an improvement, right?
Yes, absolutely.
If they get 4 hours, they can focus on a certain task, but they're going to get it done in 4 hours instead of 8 hours.
And that's the
taking a
thought.
bunch of calls in between.
Yeah, and there's the calls in the doorbell. Because we don't have somebody that staffs that window nonstop, anytime the doorbell goes off, somebody has to get up. And we have staff development goals as well. The other thing is this is a group that is eager. They enjoy contributing. We have such a strong group that everybody takes so much pride in what we do that I think we can foster a stronger culture by providing more opportunity for them to make contributions. Because the only thing limiting their contributions now is capacity. And can we free up some capacity?
And now that you move the button, I can't reach in and push it to open the door.
We moved the button. We didn't move it because of you,
Okay,
but
You don't have
you
a-
highlighted the need
you
to
don't have a
move it.
car?
so, let me just, I'm gonna chime in.
Yeah.
On this, and I'm glad the mayor is here. At a council meeting, I supported them going to the 4-day work week. I do, and I am gonna say, I do have reservations, not about the 4-day work week, but this 4-day work week has reduced their work hours to 38 hours in the week. If you do the math, 7:30 to 5:30, a half-hour lunch. But what they're doing is they're paying now for their lunch, a half-hour lunch. That's how they're getting to, they're being paid for 40 hours of work, but only having to work 38 hours. I'm still gonna support it, but I do have issues with that. You know, and I've heard that, well, we don't take breaks. You legally have to allow 2 breaks a day, 15-minute, and you can't, you know, somebody says, oh, I won't take my breaks or whatever. You cannot, you legally have to allow them, you can't, that's a non-negotiator. I would support anything for our employees as long as it was still a 40-hour work week. I just have, what is, I guess my question is, what is the DPW doing? Are they going to a 4-day work week, or they're still putting in 40 hours?
They're not making any decisions until Rich gets here.
So you now have a class of employees at the city that are only working 38 hours, getting paid for 40, and you have another class that are working 40 and getting paid for 40. I will support it, but I question that. And so again, with light and power, however you do it, I still believe that it needs to be a 40-hour work week. That's where I stand.
The other thing that we are gonna watch, you know, we talk about strategic goals of minimizing disruptions. And we will, I don't know what the outcome will be, but we're gonna monitor, Friday water payments. And do we have an uptick in water payments? Again, and we're very much supportive of continuing to take water payments, and we're hope that the city's supportive of continuing to take our payments, but, you know, it's something that, we're just gonna monitor, and would want to share with you, just so you all have the information, but, the first Friday that they are scheduled, or the first due date in October does fall on a Friday that City Hall will be closed. So, we'll see. I don't know, we'll see.
So my question to you then, because I know the city has said, oh, we'll just push that day out, you know, and everything. So are we gonna do the same thing for people that pay at the city? They come in on Monday and pay, and technically for Lowell Light and Power, they're late?
Yes,
Yeah.
our due date is our due date. The hope is that customers are aware that the water due date will move to Monday. But we've had customers, if our due date falls on a Saturday, we've had customers try and make payments or think that they need to make payments by 5 o'clock on Saturday, even though it says, we tell them, no, it's the next due date's always on a business day, so.
Does your auto pay come out? Not on auto pay, so I don't know.
Comes out on the 18th.
Even if it's a Saturday or Sunday, it's nothing that you guys have to.
Nope.
We don't
have
know
to
that.
wait before due date.
Yeah, they just have it scheduled to be pulled 2 days before due date. So, again, really was just using the city's move. I think it was I thought it was interesting, Mike and I didn't really have any conversations, but we were clearly both thinking down the lines of how can we leverage an alternative schedule for, whether it's employee retention, or strategic goals, or whatever the case may be, efficiencies, whatever. But we're working down parallel paths a little bit, and I think one of the things that we've talked about internally is I don't think there's enough differences in the two organizations that it's not a one size fits all, and I like the idea of let's not think about the work week like let's not get caught in the old thoughts of work weeks. How Megan and I have had some really crazy conversations that I won't even share because they don't work. But we really tried to go out.
In your opinion.
They don't. Oh, let me tell you, she flat out told me, "You do that, I'll kill you." That would never work.
I want to know what that idea is.
No, I'll share after. It's interesting. What we're doing is trying to really let the data push us towards understanding how our customers want to do business with us. One of the things that I think is really important for any monopoly is to not get caught up in forcing their customers to conform to you, but being willing to meet in the middle.
Don't be complacent.
Yeah, it goes back to don't be complacent.
Don't you think, and I'm not just devil's advocate, don't you think when you offer so many different things to where they shouldn't need you anymore, at some point, are they then just not I'm not saying becoming complacent, but I give you 5 opportunities and you don't take any of them. Do you even want to change? Then, like, why am I beholden to
No, I agree.
someone who's not giving reciprocal effort?
And that's why we can't get married to the idea of making every single customer happy, because it's impossible. But a way that I think about things from time to time is if we were in competition for that customer and they had the choice to choose their utility and how we do business with them. I don't want to get complacent with, oh, our rates are cheaper and our reliability is better. I constantly think about if we had to win that customer.
In other words, if we stopped accepting checks with Perry, go to you consumers.
Yes, that's a really good example.
It's kind of funny and serious.
If for some reason we saw it as a benefit to us to stop taking cash payments. Wait, I'm not proposing it. I hear the grumbles. Now, cash is obsolete. We're going to all digital currency. We're going to cryptocurrency.
Bitcoin only, I'm sorry, Perry.
But would our customers say, man, I want some? So yes, I would agree that it's important to provide options. But at the end of the day, if a customer wants to do business face to face, there will always be customers. I talked to my brother, who I'm never giving my bank account information to anybody for auto pay. Never doing it. Well, that's you, and anything that's a flat amount he pays through bank bill pay, but anything that's variable, he wants to deal with on a monthly basis. That's his choice, and I don't want to leverage our monopoly status to force people to do business the way that we want them to do business. I think it's important to balance the good of all customers. And I think this is to your point, is there's some customers that only want, that we're never going to make happy, don't want these options, will never use the options, aren't going to beat us in the middle. Yeah. Fine, but I'm happy to serve them the way they want to be served until it's to the detriment of all customers.
Yeah, so it's
And
when they become an anchor and they're slowing
Yes.
down the progress overall, you need to use their paper check as a sale and power forward. You know what I'm saying, Barry?
I mean, we've done, here's an example.
Why they throw them under the bus?
I love Barry.
I don't think you hear the beep.
He knows how I feel about him.
Here's an example, our AMI, when we first introduced it, we allowed people that didn't want to go on it, not to go on it. We have, over time, have looked, and after doing our studies of payments with UFS and different things, there's a cost of doing business, and we then implemented, we said, okay, because there was no charge for that. We were still having to send somebody out to read a meter. But again, it then at some point became those that are on AMI meters, that didn't have to have somebody come out, they're subsidizing those that want to. So we said, okay, you can continue if you want, but you are going to get a surcharge for not being, because we still have to send
It was to the detriment of all customers.
Right.
At that point.
all customers, other customers were paying the bill for those people that didn't want to be on there. And again, an example.
No, hey, look, good, I think I'm gonna answer your question. Good example, you can't make everybody happy. We went from 80-ish customers down to 7 or 8?
Yep.
7, I think? I know what you're gonna ask.
Well, yeah, I thought it was a smaller number than that were still on.
But we made those 7 customers probably unhappy.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay something extra at that point. But the rest of the customers aren't subsidizing it, and there's a good to all customers by doing it. So yes, I completely agree, but also don't want to rely too much on our ability to force customers to bend to our will. So there's a balance.
Well, I feel like at the city, we're doing the opposite, right? Because we're gonna shorten hours and we're given opportunities to do permits online and all that stuff, but then when you go to pay your water bill online, we charge you an additional fee. So it's almost a deterrent. Or if I go pay you it doesn't matter how much air conditioning I use, but I pay that amount to what my bill is, where if I go to the city and pay my $110 water bill, it costs me $114. So why wouldn't I just go in?
And
So,
quite honestly, it's a fear that some of our office staff has, or all of our office staff, and me included, that we could see a significant increase in disruptions, during those due dates or during the times when it does make sense to pay your water bill in person. There's another data point that we track, and I wouldn't want to speak without data, but it's again, if we do our best to make our decisions based on the data that we have in front of us, and we try not to jump to, we may hypothesize that this could happen or not, but we also see the benefit. There are customers that we have that enjoy doing business with us and choose to come in and pay. They like coming in, saying hi to Hillary, and at the same time, they pay their electric bill. They also go ahead and pay the water bill. Well, that's a choice that customer has. We'll just monitor and see how things shake out. And if it becomes something that's worth exploring, I have supreme confidence that we will work with the city, that we work together great in all facets. So I'm very much confident that we'll be able to sit down and discuss what the impacts are and how we might be able to work together to mitigate any negative impacts. So, but really wanted to share more about what we could potentially be, what we're exploring, what we've been thinking about for a few months now. We're starting to get to the point where I think there's enough data, because we're very much cyclical inside of a day and inside of a month as well. So, there are certain weeks, and that's where I was told I'm trying to do different weeks, different things. But I'll share that after the meeting, so I don't have to say something stupid on camera. Anything else stupid on camera. So. But other than that, on the manager's report, auditors were in the building. Is that 2 weeks ago now? 2 weeks ago. It's always great to have them. Megan and I, Julie and Megan really take the lead on that. I joined them for a few conversations here and there. Megan and I are continuing to work on a couple odds and end things to wrap it up, but Peter should be here next month to do our audit review.
To the board members, if you haven't filled out that little form that they wanted, I would encourage you to do that and get it to Megan, and she can forward it on to Peter. Or you can, a bunch of you are much more savvy, so you can probably email it directly to to Peter or whatever. I hand did mine, and he happened to be in the office when I was there, so.
Oh, you,
I
oh,
hand-
I know you hand delivered it.
I hand delivered it, and I discussed each one with them.
Thinking of that commercial where the lady says, I'm
non-
taking notes on my phone.
Yes.
A non-answer is not like an answer in the affirmative that everything is fine and you don't have any questions. We must fill it out and.
Well,
They request that they have a paper copy, if they can, but I also don't think, he's also told me a lot of places they go, they don't get a ton in return, obviously. I would agree, it's important to do.
and again, a lot of them several of them I owe. I have all 100% faith in all of our staff, and I don't believe there's any fraud, and then one of them was, and I said, we have our in-depth monthly board meetings that, verify a lot of things for us, and we have dual signatures on checks, just those types of things that I filled out, so.
I mean, you don't have to have them for an audit, but if you don't get them as an auditor, it raises your risk, so then they have to do additional procedures to mitigate the fact that the board's not returning the questionnaire, so it's important to kind of like, makes things run smoother for them. Instead, they have to go find a different way to go, okay, well, the board's not really communicating to us, we're supposed to communicate directly with the board about fraud and specific, controls, things like that. If we don't communicate directly with them, then they have to find a secondary way to mitigate the risk that the board's not involved in the audit process as much as they should.
Thank you for
Could be.
clarifying that.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. I never heard that perspective from somebody
our
who
risk.
has that, which it makes sense, but it's not just about getting information, it's about engaging.
Yeah.
But the only other thing I had, I want to recognize Jeremy Wilson celebrated his third working anniversary with us, and he's been a tremendous asset, so I would not want to overlook that.
Okay,
That is manager's report.
schedule of meetings, next regular.
Oh, wait a second, we added pictures.
Oh, yeah, okay. So
Yes.
I was, happened to be Saturday mornings, a lot of times I stop by and see Marty Chambers, and I actually saw what was, because I miss coffee with council. And so they were having an open house, as you can see, Andrew's there, so I went in and snapped some shots with my phone, and
Oh, so this was not the open house?
No, not, this was
this is,
the,
I don't know what it was.
this is called the reveal. So the way this competition works is that on that Saturday at noon, a video comes out that explains the rules of the game for that year, and what the challenge is, and so everyone kind of tunes in to see, okay, we gotta start brainstorming for what we're gonna do.
That's funny, because I specifically remembered you had a University of Michigan aerospace engineering shirt on. Because I laughed and said, there's only like 8 people that are allowed to wear that. It's not every day you see a U of M aerospace engineering, so I kind of laughed, we talked about it in the office, but, so this was a second of it, the robotics team also did an actual open house, the same night as the, middle school ribbon cutting. It kind of, started a little bit before, I think maybe went a little after, but I stopped by, they had a great crowd, they were handing out hot dogs and chips and a bunch of kids were running around, and I really enjoyed it because they had they had both the high school and the middle school students there, and they were just kind of showing off what they were, what they did, but and I've gotten to know the coaches a little bit just from talking with them, but it was a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun having the robotics team in that space, and we're excited to see what they can do with it. Obviously, you can see that they've got a lot of stuff. It's hard to see in this picture, but it makes me feel even better about felt great about offering up the space, and appreciative of you coming up with the idea of how to do it, but after seeing their space filled, I couldn't imagine how
they did it in
They
the
did,
classroom and then put
yeah.
stuff away every night.
Scattered, and they have
Do they have enough room in there now? I mean,
Well, again, this was a big group, I don't know, I mean,
They could always use more space, I'm sure.
right, but it's a start.
Yeah, I mean, that little practice, arena, that little square you see in the foreground, I mean, that takes up a lot of the space, and,
Yeah, that's the playing field.
yeah,
That's where they do their competitions.
So I know we've been really busy, when I say we, Lowell Light and Power and everything, but I did notice we're missing a couple things that I don't know, an exit sign over each door. There's not, that was just the blatant one that I saw that we need to
move.
we need to address that.
Yeah.
So, because the other, where there actually is an exit sign, it's up higher, it's over the door that goes to our offices, and that door's locked.
Yeah.
So we need to get exit signs.
That'll happen.
well, so far we figured out how to get out. We did have the sign-out sheet, and Coach mentioned that at the first practice, apparently there were 4 kids that never left. So maybe they need an exit sign, but.
show them
Yeah,
over
use
the
the
wall.
sign-out sheet, but yeah.
Well, otherwhere.
Okay. Our next meeting is October 10th. Again, before that, we do encourage people to, with the Public Power Week. I'm going to start board comments with Daniel. We missed you, Daniel.
I appreciate, thanks for excusing my absence. Semi-busy.
I have a child, that's not important. I mean,
And also, for reappointing me, you and the rest of the city
Thank you.
council, I appreciate that. I missed it earlier, but when we were looking at that rate comparison, it says it's all in rates, does that include, customer charge? Was that, I know Andrew asked about it, I missed it, I was thinking about something.
It's full, the only piece I'm not 100% confident is whether or not it factors in historical PCA.
Okay.
And it's a big data request, so I won't put you on the spot, but yes, it generally is apples to apples, not just a variable
Okay.
kilowatt hour, not the
I thought so.
kilowatt hour rate, it's the all-in rate.
I was thinking about it later, so, that's it, I guess I got a new kid, thanks for the gift basket, I passed that along, the little light and power onesie thing is
Aw.
stupid hilarious, yeah. Look at this thing, look, they got the little light and power logo on it.
Oh, it did have a little light.
Yeah, it was awesome, it was
Yes.
On
it was
what?
very good. It's like a onesie, like a gray onesie.
I think that was the picture, I shared a picture
Yeah,
last
yeah,
month,
yeah.
it was in there, so.
Yeah, so, and we appreciate it quite a bit, so it's very nice. And that's all I got.
Tina.
LL&P rocks, of course. It was great when I walked into work on Friday, and they had on the screen the outage map of Kent County, and everybody, and then they put like a little sticky note that pointed to the middle, of course, where Lowell's at. They wrote Tina Town. So everybody, so that was pretty fun. I didn't, but it was so they're like, oh, I see you came in. So they were, once again, they were pretty cool about how everybody around us was out, and here our area was up and running, and we didn't skip a beat. Even my director said, which he raises kangaroos, believe it or not. And I already asked him if kangaroo steaks taste good. But he'd like to move to Lowell because he lost power.
Tell him he can move here if he gives the mayor a kangaroo.
One Wally, little.
No, I wanna ride that thing around town and punch people who talk bad about me on the internet.
Right.
I would imagine housing for you, I mean, do all the, everything.
What, I do?
That coverage is gonna be great.
There you go. I'm not telling them about this, they need to watch. Next weekend, or this coming weekend, is the Fallisburg Festival. The museum has apple dumplings for sale. Fallisburg Historical Society is homemade baked cookies, so please swing by. And in Tina's book, as far as alternative schedule for workers, I'm all for it because I'll tell you, Blue Cross Blue Shield lets us do it for 6 months. And because I'd like to have Fridays off to take some of the elders in our community to a doctor's appointment. I have a coworker that takes Mondays off. So that's how we have full coverage at all times. So I'm a big advocate for that, for 10-hour work weeks, or I had the opportunity recently that David gave me his blessing that I could go to a 32-hour work week. So I didn't have to stay there 10 hours for 4 days. I could go to 32 hours. So I was, so that's the program I'm on. So as far as that's going on deal, sorry Perry, I really am an advocate for these people to have 4-day work week. I love it.
Yeah, well, I'm an advocate for a 4-day work week. It just, I believe you have to have the 40 hours in.
Or 32, like.
Well, you're getting paid for 32. My issue is
What I'm saying is.
you're moving to a 38-hour work week and getting paid for 40.
Right.
So,
Because you're not getting paid for, you're getting, my assumption is you're getting paid for 32. You're not getting paid for 40 and only working 32,
not at
right?
all.
Right.
Not at all. 32.
But you're still considered full-time.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Mind you, too, any company can bring it down to 10 hours a week per person to be full-time and have full benefits. It's your discretion. So anybody that tells you that it's not, or
We have operational needs that don't align with 30-hour work weeks, so you guys can squash all that real quick. Thanks, Ryan. Ryan's like, I got too much stuff to get done.
wow. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Andrew.
So, actually, a few comments this time, so I had to take a few notes to not forget, but, I'm serious, I did think that discussion you had about office, prioritizing, staff work and how to best serve customers and identify through data, where to maximize that ratio, right, or that balance between service and staff efficiency. I'm serious, but I think that's one of the cooler things I've heard, in terms of what you guys discussed strategically. And, I'm looking forward to hear where that comes out to, and again, I agree, I think that the staff is awesome. And I think I made this comment before when Julie was here, or about it's encouraging to see the staff interrupt you, when they feel it's necessary, and I think Megan did that today,
I do it all the time.
And
She's mean.
but it's something I've been, I forget, I don't know how long I've been on the board now, but that's not something that they used to do, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, over time I've noticed that they're much more outspoken.
Good.
I
Appreciate that.
And I think it has to do with both you and Steve, just encouraging that type of environment. I don't know what you think about it, but that's what I've noticed, and
Cameras on, I can be careful.
I've told them, and this is no joke, I've told them you are welcome to come in my office and call me a moron. You better come ready for an argument,
Right.
yep.
but if you're right, I will acknowledge it, and I'll appreciate it. I might get mad in a moment, but I'll come back to you 10 minutes later and say thanks. But
Yep.
I'll get my kangaroo.
As a board member, it is nice to hear that the staff is willing to and not afraid to speak up in front of us or in the public or whatever, this meeting is, just saying, hey, I've got some information, this is what it is, not waiting to be called on, so to speak. And so I think that's a good sign, and I'm encouraged by the trend that that's doing. Story about the storm, so it's good to hear that you guys are having fun, the storm. Had a tree fall down on our road that block the road, and so I was out there at night with a headlamp with a handsaw, and my dad has a chainsaw, and trying to cut it up small enough that I could drag it, and at least get it off the road. Finally, some other guy showed up with a chainsaw, and we got it taken care of. But so we had this huge pile, in our yard of just dead ash and dead elm, I think they were, and got to see the chipper in action. The guys drove up, and I saw them drive up, and so I quickly finished up some calls on. I was like, oh, go out there and see it, say hi and all that. And then 3 minutes later, the trees were gone, and they're moving on like crap.
You missed that option.
Yeah, but I mean, some of these things are, but I was impressed like how fast they just went up there and took care of that and moved on. And I saw a couple of them discussing how the tree fell. I think there's a lot of gesturing about this way or that way. I think they're trying to figure out where the evidence all the branches were and why the tree was not where it fell, but over here. And anyway.
That was something, not to interrupt, but that's something that didn't get any attention today. Ryan coordinated with Jeff, I'm thinking, at DPW, and immediately had a brush cleanup type of community partnership scheduled for the next week. And it was a big to-do, probably a little bigger than we realized at the moment, but it's one of the things that didn't even come up in this, but it really was something that, it was a great part, it was not yet, you should go first. It was a great partnership between us and DPW, and that relationship, I'm not sure has ever been this strong. Looking forward to Rich joining the team, to just make that team even stronger. But for me, I saw some of it happen organically between a conversation with Ryan and Jeff while we were eating lunch, because we invited DPW down here to eat on Friday. So we had a lunch, and they were kind of coming in and out, and Ryan and Jeff were talking, and it kind of all just, hey, we'll do this, yep, boom. They just kind of know we're on the same page, let's go.
I think the DPW had, at least, they're going around with a truck and physically picking up that stuff and putting it in the truck and then bringing it someplace and.
We did that too. We did, because it was the chipper, I mean, you fill the chipper up in just a few minutes, and then you gotta go and dump it and fill up their dump truck in just a few minutes. So we were running with dump trucks and 2 dump trailers and the mini excavator, using that to just grab the piles and load them into the trailer. And we filled up a couple acres of space out at the city dump with just brush, because we just had to keep going, or we were never gonna get it done. It worked great.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that didn't get, that's one of the things that fell through the cracks a little bit.
No, that was a good one. Yes, I'll go quick notes. So today I got a tour of the Grand Rapids Airport through work. Got to see like the control tower, the baggage handling behind the scenes, and things like that. And so it was a lot of fun just to see that. But one of the questions I asked was like, so how much power do you guys use? Just out of curiosity. And surprisingly less than I thought. 2.5 megawatts was their peak.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's half of it.
Yeah.
I just said 7 or 8, if not 10 or 15.
I mean, I was thinking they'd gotta be close to like the city of Lowell or something. So, no, they're that, and they're the second largest, behind Metro in Michigan. And, that's impressive,
That was interesting.
I'm
impressed that the person you asked had an answer to that.
Yeah. Well, they only have they told us 7 engineers on staff for that whole thing. And I said, well, I don't think we have that many. But we've got a higher ratio of megawatts per engineer. And then lastly, I just want to mention the robotics. We kind of talked about some of that already. We had the open house, plus we've had 2 meetings so far, or build sessions, we call them, and we've gone great. It's nice to not have 20 minutes of pulling stuff out of the closet in the beginning and 20 minutes of putting it away. Right? So now our sessions, it's like that was 20% of our time was, set up and tear down. It's like 2.5 hours, we'd be invited. So that's a big savings, but it's just kind of nice to have a spot where stuff like that practice arena can just sit there. And we don't have to move that or tear that up and down. And especially when the weather's nice, having that big door open. It's a cool industrial feeling space. And so I just wanted to thank Light and Power for getting that working, so I know the team loves it. And, you know, especially Perry, thanks for being kind of enthusiastic about it and getting that wall built and,
Just gotta get rid of that, consumer's power clipboard.
Yes.
Other than that.
yes, that's right.
Other than
have a
that,
light and power clipboard anywhere?
So they had a bag of clipboards, somebody grabbed one, there's 2 or 3 clipboards in this bag of like 10 or 12 that have a consumer's versus just basic ones. And
Just have some stickers.
Just get a
that's
sticker.
exactly what I said, just get a sticker.
We'll get you a sticker.
I think you should do that. I take the sticker idea back.
I like that.
Yeah. And so that, it's like, and coach was discussing it afterward, he's like, yeah, Perry came in and he had this, he's like, we should do something. I'm like, I don't think he was that serious about it.
well, he probably didn't know.
Yeah.
One of the
He was a good little
he-
concerned, he's
when
like,
we
yeah,
first come in, he
poor
said like,
taste.
he said like, you know,
Hurry.
can you send me some of those pictures and everything? I'm going, yeah. He introduces himself and I introduce myself and then I'm going over and I see this and I go, he's the one, I go, you gotta get rid of this consumer's energy thing. So yeah, he probably didn't know that I'll have to let him know that was more of a joke than it was, I wasn't,
Yeah.
In his defense, sometimes it is hard to tell, because I think you're mad at me sometimes when you're not.
Anything else?
I do.
Oh, so with the last bit, so beware, part of the competition is to have a robot that launches a paper airplane. We haven't even started building the robot yet, but there've been at least 1,000 airplane launches. And so don't be surprised if you find a few airplanes on the other side of the wall.
I hope we do. I'll find some random airplanes.
That's cool.
But, so yes, the place is getting used twice a week, and it's been good so far. Thanks.
Fantastic, we're glad to hear that.
Craig?
Echo Andrew's comments on how Charlie and everyone is handling the continuous quality improvement that goes on here, and doing it in a data-driven way and on a needs-met basis. That's excellent. Also, yeah, Tina mentioned Fallsburg Fall Arts Festival this Sunday, or Saturday and Sunday. Not only will Fallsburg Historical Society have cookies, but we will have, well, cold
Rum?
cider if it's hot cider if it's cold, and I will have a flask of rum. Coffee and bottled water, so, and all kinds of good stuff like cookbooks and coins and all that. Congratulations to Jeremy for the 3rd year. And one other thing I was going to mention is that earlier we were talking about rates and about how we had an elderly customer that was paying, more just because of their base service charge per month. Just the flat service charge.
Oh, no, this is an employee of ours.
It's
Not elderly.
Oh, not. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, so I
But
just
they-
made an assumption, I don't know.
But now I have something to laugh about tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, so it's
Fair enough,
never,
I didn't mention the name.
I thought you said retired, I thought you
No,
said.
oh, no.
So, okay, never mind. Well, that brought to mind though, could we be offering a discount to seniors 65 and older? No.
I mean, the short answer is no. And I'm happy to talk to you, but we have cost-based rates.
Right.
So there's no, you don't
You can't.
You don't
create
offer a
another
discount
class.
on the base, and there's legal issues.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
class issues, you charge the class. So I think the better avenue is make sure we have effective support programs in place for when they get behind it and need help.
Okay.
A plus from, but no, it's generally,
I mean, I
generally
realize we
considered.
have that kind of thing in place, but yeah, I was just thinking in terms of
Yeah.
if they lived in another community, their base rate would be.
But I will also say, this employee uses almost no electricity.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know you could honestly use this little electricity. I mean, we're talking like maybe 100 kilowatt hours a month.
So there's probably not another customer in the system that uses that.
They are, when you do a bell curve,
Yeah, okay.
They're the first customer.
I don't want to keep the meeting going too much longer, I just wanted to bring that up. So my
It's a
comments are finished for the evening.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
I get comments?
Yeah.
I want to thank Charlie and his staff for their donation and their letter over to the fire department after the stuff with my dad. And I want to thank the board here because I feel like this is the board where you have to dedicate the most time to learning what we're talking about when we sit here, because I get lost sometimes when I sit. I enjoy sitting in on these meetings, but so I'm grateful to the five of you for the work that you do, and that it's catered, which I think is pretty great.
Thanks, Kate. Casey, you're our caterer tonight.
Oh, yeah. Solid work.
No problem.
A+.
Okay, I want to thank the mayor for sitting in for Jim. I know Jim does a great job of transferring the information back to the council, but it's nice to have the mayor, the mayor's ear once in a while. The other thing that he and I have talked about, we really would like to get a workshop together with the city council and us, and just talk about some things. And we've looked at it. I think one of the best solutions would be to meet before their council meeting. My thoughts are to have a 6 o'clock meeting with them. If they could push theirs starting to 7:30 sometime, so that, again, having it sooner, starting at 5, I think it's causes, for some people would be a tough to get there. But again, I don't know what the rest of the board feels, but we haven't had one in a long time, and I think we would put together some specific topics that wouldn't be, an open bitch session, excuse the French, or whatever.
Ain't open mic.
So anyway, that would be one thing we want to talk about. Kudos to the staff, the linemen, but also the office staff during the weather. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of our office staff came in and manned phones and different things during this time. So it wasn't just our linemen that were out there. It was kind of like all of our employees that made a difference in that. We had the last week or the week before, time flies, Charlie had a funeral that he had to attend outside the area, and that was our last final session of the strategic plan. So thank you, Megan. She got the computer hooked up for me, and I didn't mute it. I just left it alone. I just kept my mouth shut and listened to everybody until it was my turn, because I wasn't gonna frog around and screw something up. But it was interesting for me not having my safety net there, which was Charlie. So and each one of these strategic plans we have. So I'm going to throw him under the bus. We have homework that we have to send in, and Charlie always does the homework and sends it in. So when it got to me, all of a sudden, here's these things that are coming up on the screen, and I got to explain and everything, and I'm going, well, I haven't even seen it yet, so I'm just gonna wing it here, folks.
I forgot to send one email that week. It would have been very beneficial to Perry. It was a Perry. I even had it typed, hey, Perry, you should probably see this before the meeting.
So-
I forgot to hit send.
So anyway, it was the last session. It was a and I told them, because I'm not sure that they all were sure whether doing it remotely was the best solution, but I think it was a great solution, very economical for us. And it was there was 4, and I've mentioned this before, there was 4 utilities that participated, and getting information from those other, picking the other 3's brains. And it also, and those other 3 were working on their first strategic plan they've ever had. So we were light years ahead, and it was, but it was very educational going through that. And our Steve Vandermeer is sending us all the homework and all the slides and everything, and we'll be able to put that together and then share that with the rest of the board, and then we'll at a later date have a discussion of some things that we learned or that we might want to adjust or whatever. And I'll if you want to speak to that at all, or.
Yeah, the thought was, it was kind of interesting because, time constraints, this wasn't we're going to develop your strategic plan workshop. It was really an education and it was more a how to do a strategic plan. Here's things to consider, but it wasn't actually producing. It was producing pieces of it. But also, after doing that with Steve and then sitting through the MPPA strategic plan workshop, there's a whole lot of things in that process that don't necessarily need to be updated. I think the board is aware of the landscape that we operate in. Because the board is engaged and informed, some of that preliminary work can move fairly quickly, but it does set the foundation for the rest of it. But identifying strategic priorities, but I think there's snippets that we can say, instead of saying, hey, we're going to do an 8-hour strategic plan work session, like I did with MPPA, I think we can say, hey, we're going to tackle this one step and have a conversation on strategic priorities. But I think there's ways that, and I hope you agree, that I think we are better equipped to understand kind of the science-ish, the quasi-science behind the strategic plan. So I know I have a better understanding of what outcomes I'd like to see, or what outcomes from a staff perspective would help, create some guidance. But I also, one of the biggest takeaways I had is we don't have a ton of low-hanging fruit like some of these other utilities. We've been progressive and have stayed ahead of the curve for a long time, so there's a lot of affirmation throughout the process from these other participants of they're trying, some of them are trying to accomplish the things that we've already accomplished.
Some of them are just getting into the AMI.
That's one I went to.
Some of the reporting, keeping track of outages. Another one like Charlevoix was really interesting. It's Charlevoix, but they also have the I don't know if it's Charlevoix Township, but one of the townships are part of a large portion of their service area. And what was really interesting is they only have their meters, so 26% out of all of them are full-time residents. The 74% are seasonal, coming in from wherever. So, I mean, they have a lot of challenges when only 26% of their population are full-time residents. So but it was very enlightening, and I think we'll be able to use that information. And again, I'm going to just say that for the most part, it was an affirmation of we're far ahead of a lot of other people, and we're doing things right. One more thing for us board members. I'm going to say you have one more day. It's not, the last day is the 13th to do your.
I did my
everything. I would say
to your cybersecurity.
And that one slipped my mind, so I normally ask Lisa to give me a report before the board meeting, but if you haven't done it, you know you haven't done it.
Obviously I haven't, because I'm bringing it up, I've got one more
Thank
day.
you. Yes, thank you for bringing it up. That slipped my mind.
I thought I did.
There was I forgot
I thought I did
something.
once.
So that's done. Lastly, coming up, this next week is gonna be Pink Arrow Week. Getting things, again, I'm still actively involved. I know our guys that are on Wednesday will be helping to hook up the electricity out there. It's really, this year, not to my liking, but it's a 2-day event. Soccer is going to play on Thursday and not Friday. So soccer's on Thursday, and then volleyball, and football, and the youth flag football is going to be on Friday. And, well, we kind of figured, because last year, because we have soccer used to play down on the football field, now they have their own stadium, so they're up, so last year they were up there, and it really, there was a big void once the volleyball game was over with. There was a lot of void, so we're having the volleyball, and then we're also we're having flag football, which would be fun to watch these 5 and 6 year olds or 7, whatever, playing flag football. We also think, well, that'll bring in a lot of parents and a lot of grandparents and that type of thing. Another thing, and some of you might have seen it, again, last year we did perseverance stories, and we recorded them and did them online. Again, we decided this year to go back to print and online. I think you can go to Lowell's First Look and see them online. They're in the ledger, they're in the buyer's guide. Last week, I want to point out that Jamie Teachworth and the Teachworth family offered, we asked, and they were more than willing to tell their story. So if you missed that, you can still get that. This week, and this is something for your office, I think you need a little more wall decorations in your office. So this is, we asked Jamie, because we know what that family's going through. Some time ago in one of our conversations with Charlie and I get choked up. I noticed a lot of times when I get talking about these things, and I could see a little red eye from Charlie, and I said, if you don't mind me asking, did you? I just feel like you've had something in your life, and he said yes, and he shared that with me, and we wanted a perspective. We have this week the new minister that's at Congregational Church. My wife asked her to do an article, what it was, because she's just moving into the community, and Gilda's Club has moved out to the Congregational Church along with senior neighbors, so getting that perspective. I said to my wife, you could ask, Charlie's been here for a couple of years, and get hit, and we've talked about what great things we feel that Pink Arrow does, and so this week, or tonight, when you go home, it's Tuesday night, you can stop by the gas station and buy a ledger, and you will see Charlie's article, wrote a perseverance story in there. So this is, and so I framed it. Again, this is a little white, and if you need more, if you want to send to other family members, Teresa can get more of these, but this can go up, and for those that Don't know, Charlie,
That's awesome.
Is that a Mighty Ducks jersey?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Charlie lost
It's
his.
Charlie Banks.
Charlie lost his mother to cancer when he was, I believe it's a senior in high school. And so he wrote about that and what the perspective is of coming and moving into Lowell. And it's a very nice article.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. You gotta go to